is Johnny Cash on my shirt. I learned the truth from Granddad's vinyl and a preacher down on River Road. If you care to know anything about me, I'll tell you everything you need to know. I'm hallelujah head high, friends in low places, red, white, and blue, and red letter pages, back row pew and front seat for New King James and Old King George. I'm washed in the water and mud on the tide. I'm fighting night lights and Sunday morning quiet. I'm prayers up to heaven, roots down in Kentucky, made by God and country. God and country. Always been and will be my true north. When it feels like the world's going south, it is well with my soul where the green grass grows on some hometown holy ground. I'm hallelujah head high, friends in low places, red, white, and blue, and red letter pages, back row pew and front seat for New King James and Old King George. I'm washed in the water and mud on the tide. I'm fighting night lights and Sunday morning quiet. I'm prayers up to heaven, roots down in Kentucky, made by God and country. Made by God and country. I'm hallelujah head high, and friends in low places, red, white, and blue, and red letter pages, back row pew and front seat for New King James and Old King George. I'm embraced and free and a heart and daughter, child of the King and a coal miner's daughter. I'm prayers up to heaven, roots down in Kentucky. Oh yeah, I got a good life down here and a better one waiting up above me, made by God and country. God and
Talk is like a deadly medication. I try, but I can't change my situation. Cause that liar comes to rob my joy. Yeah, I'm bruised, but I'm not destroyed. I'm rising like an army, and you're gonna hear the sound. I'm calling the angels down. I'm storming the gates of hell. Tell the devil he don't own my soul. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. I'm raising the battle cry. I'm holding the banner high with the power of the Holy Ghost. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. Oh, you can't speak your lies over my family now. You can't break the promises that I'm standing on. Ain't got a flex to put you back in your place now. One name is all I gotta say. Jesus, I'm calling the angels down. I'm storming the gates of hell. Tell the devil he don't own my soul. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. I'm raising the battle cry. I'm holding the banner high with the power of the Holy Ghost. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. Taking my peace back. Taking my job. Taking all. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. We're done with all the mind games. You try to play, if it ain't clear yet, I want everything you took from me. In the name of the one who is peace, the one who heals all disease, the only reason that I am free. That name is Jesus, Lord of Lords and King of Kings. Jesus, the name that makes the demons flee. I want it all now, we're taking it back now. Yeah, you know it's going down, even in the sun. I'm calling the angels down. I'm storming the gates of hell. Tell the devil he don't own my soul. I'm taking back what the enemy stole. Raising the battle cry, raising our holding the banner high.
We're about to get started, my friends. It's the Macil Duncan radio show here live from Chattanooga. You're listening to some of the pre-music I like to play as we get warmed up and you guys start clicking. Tell your friends about the show today. It's on homeschooling. Are we finding that the plan for quite some time is to destroy the minds of the children? Talk about it.
They're talking about taking our rights away in the hard land where the Eagles play. You can't replace a man with a worn-out hat, or the steel in his hands, or the boot on his mat. I see the sweat on fields in the morning light, and I'd rather fight than lose that sight. Silver screen costume men with their tails, but I've lived the dirt roads and the hard-packed trails. This is my country, this is my fight. From dawn till the dusk, I'll stand for what's right. Hard work in our veins, pride in our song. We'll hold our ground, it's where we belong. They're crushing the dreams in a factory town, telling us to lay our rifles down. But a country boy's grit, it just won't break, for the roots run deep in the lands we stake. I heard Grandpa's stories about the war and the farm. His legacy beats in the stubborn arm. No suit or decree can take his flame. As long as I breathe, I'll carry his name. This is my country, this is my fight. From dawn till the dusk, I'll stand for what's right. Hard work in our veins, pride in our song. We'll hold our ground, it's where we belong.
Welcome to the show, my friends. This is Macil Duncan, and welcome to the Macil Duncan Show live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Those of you that like and share the show, we appreciate that. Please tell your friends about the Macil Duncan Show, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. You can catch me on Street Level America. Just type in streetlevelamerica.com, and all my shows are live on that station, as well as they're logged on the website. You can also go to MacilDuncanRadio.com, M-A-C-I-L, MacilDuncanRadio.com, and you can catch all my videos, which is on X, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, etc. Of course, you can find me on Facebook. That's one of my primary channels. And we appreciate all that like and share the show. We're also on USAHeartbeat.com, DestinyLifeMedia.com here in Chattanooga. The SGM Alabama Radio down in Bama land, which, by the way, it's going to get ugly come Saturday. I'm a Vol fan, so anyone that's a Bama fan and we're friends, just know it's suspended for 4 hours, and then we can be friends again, depending on the outcome. New Jersey Freedom Network, Tennessee Conservative Network, God and Politics Network, and the Revolver Media out of Indiana, my buddy Joshua Cummings. So as you tune in today, the topic's going to be something that you've probably thought you heard of, but I've got some good stuff for you. Homeschooling. Why is it on the rise? Think about this. Now, I pulled up some articles to just help explain my point, because some of you got to hear from the lip-lock liberals. I understand that. You think nothing's credible unless the liberals are talking about it as well. Well, the Washington Post says, homeschooling rise from fringe to fastest growing form of education. A district by district look at homeschooling explosive growth, which a Post analyst finds as an outpaced the rate of private and public schools. Hello. Now, people are finding out public school is dismal. But I'm going to talk to you today about two things that have happened during the Republican and the Democratic rule of former presidents. One was Common Core, if you remember, and then another was No Child Left Behind. Okay? Both those programs, the Common Core and No Child Left Behind, the goal, both of them, was to make all the kids in all the states get federal funding if they followed certain guidelines. And they had to, because they didn't want any kid getting left behind. I mean, it all sounded good. Common Core, No Child Left Behind. But then when you strip off all the fat and you get down to the nitty-gritty, it was a way to manipulate the minds of children on DEI, critical race theories and all the different critical theories, disbelieving in the America that you and I grew up in. It's a strategy. And they knew it was a long term. Again, I tell you, my friends, the liberals are better planners than the conservatives. Conservatives tend to overreact. We get upset when we start seeing their plan emerge, but not realizing they've worked on it for maybe decades. But once it finally materializes before our very eyes, then the conservatives, we rise up, we get upset. Because we've dropped the ball. You know, I played football at Red Bank High School here in Chattanooga. I don't know if you all play ball. And by the way, my football here, signed by the Carolina Panthers the year they went to the Super Bowl. I was co-chaplain and got to speak to the team, and it was an honor. But I say this, when a ball hits the ground, anyone who played football, you know what the deal is. Everyone stops your assignment, the assignment then is everyone get the ball. Fall on the ball. Now, if you've ever seen in college, and sometimes in pros, you've got the elites. They can do this. But from college down, the coaches say just jump on it. Have you ever seen a fumble ball and someone tries to get fancy and pick it up and run with it? But see, the football, as you know, it's not an easy target sometimes. I mean, to pick up, it's an unusual shape. And sometimes people will fumble the ball, and it gets fumbled 3 or 4 times before someone secures it. That's why Coach Weathers at Red Bank High School said, don't pick up the ball and try to be a hero. Fall on the ball and scrape it up both hands, cuddle up until the referee taps you on the shoulder and says you can get up. What we've done as conservatives, we've fumbled the ball bad. And many of you, in good, sincere ways, have tried to pick it up and advance an issue or something, but you're just fumbling it further down the line. How are we going to fix this? I've got some ideas. We'll talk about it. But I will tell you one thing that may shock or roost some of you guys. It's called Agenda 47. Donald Trump's promising, hey, if you support me, I'm going to get you some money back. Check this out.
Tax cuts. We allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more.
Now, you've heard me talk. I've tried to be a friend of Weston Wamp, the mayor here in Hamilton County. Now, Weston still, I think, he realizes I'm trying to be his friend here, but I supported one of his opponents in the campaign. I understand his reluctancy, but I did support your sister Cody. I waved signs for her, and I worked with her. And your mom Kim even her and I talked about it at the one of the fundraisers not a while back. But here's the deal. I've said this to Weston through surrogates, and I'm saying it now again. What Donald Trump's saying right there is what needs to happen. You need to, one, because they gave it, and this is where your Congress lets you down and your Senate. They gave a $10,000 price break to private school parents. Well, I hate to say this, if you can send your kids to private school, you probably got some cha-ching, okay? Tuition's not cheap. So you're giving $10,000, and I know why you do that, because most folks with cha-ching tend to vote because they want to keep their cha-ching. You think a lot of homeschoolers are maybe poor or middle-left people that may not vote. Well, that's changing. Homeschool parents are not only teaching their children, they're relearning themselves of what America's all about. And so with Americans becoming the fastest growing homeschool education hub, if you will, in the world, you're seeing parents relearn what this place is all about. And as they're doing so, and then you got a president, Donald Trump, realizing, let's be honest, the guy's running for president, and he says, I need votes. He's one of the biggest voting blocks right now in the country is homeschoolers. Right now, homeschooling is outpacing public and private schools. I told you so. In Hamilton County, if it were not for the illegals that they allowed into the school system, it'd be completely decimated just about. But by allowing all these illegal folks from the border under the Biden administration, and there's many other counties and cities in the same boat, the mayor of New York's even said it, if it wasn't for the illegal kids, your public school systems would be very, very poorly attended for two reasons. One, homeschooling is on the rise, and so is private school. And then, I hate to say it, thirdly, you've got some kids, after about the 9th grade, they're dropping out more than they ever have because they believe, I don't need a high school diploma to make money. There's several ways to make money now without a diploma. And some of it's not legit. But they're saying, hey, I can do that. So I'm bringing this to your attention because I think you should know some of this. Now, Fox News had an interesting thing about homeschooling. See what you think. It's called the Deep-Rooted Issues.
A former school principal sounded the alarm on the state of education in America, saying the system suffers deep-rooted issues.
A former public school principal pulls their child out, saying, I don't trust the system I'm a part of. My kid's not going there. Now, when a public school principal says that it's so toxic, I don't want my own child there. Hello? Let's rewind and catch that from the top.
A former school principal sounded the alarm on the state of education in America, saying the system suffers deep-rooted issues. Last year, educator and mom of 3, Mandy Davis, decided to quit her job as a school principal and focus on homeschooling her children instead, saying she was concerned over bias in the classroom and a mass exodus of qualified teachers. In recent
a mass exodus of qualified teachers. We've got one up at our food pantry. This was 2 years ago. She quit teaching during the COVID pandemic because, one, she said they were teaching online, and parents, were trying to help their kids, but they were calling the teachers all times of the day and night because some of them had shift works, etc. And teachers never got to eat meals with their kids. The public school teachers should have got a raise during COVID because for them teaching what they had to teach, I've been a big fan of giving them a raise to start with. If you made public school education more of a profitable position, and let me tell you 3 ways you should do that. You should allow teachers, once they have their master's degree, of course, they normally get a bump, and that's normal in higher education goals. But the second is tenure. When they teach somewhere, I think that they should get some kind of a bump just for tolerant and sticking it in there. But the third thing, I think there should be parental reviews. Think about this. The biggest raise should come if you get enough parents that say you're doing a good job. Why? Because there needs to be a reconnection of parents and teachers. You put parental reviews, just like anything else. You get, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars at a restaurant or anywhere else. Let the parents review. Teachers would probably, one, check their attitude at the door. Number 2, realize, hey, I'm teaching someone else's child. This is not my child, it's somebody else. Maybe I should tone back some of my preconceived views, like on transgenderism, homosexuality, and etc. That's none of my freaking business to be teaching someone else's child. I'm telling you, make me president for a day with an executive pen, 24 hours, I'd fix this country a little bit. Let's listen to the rest of the interview.
Years, some 300,000 public school teachers have left their profession.
300,000 public school teachers have left teaching between 2020 and 2022. 300,000. Scooting, vamoose, out of there.
Former Principal Mandy Davis joins us now. Mandy, thank you for being here. You're a principal at a private school. You took some time to get to that level.
At a private school, by the way, not a public school.
And yet you decided to focus on your home and homeschooling there. What's happening in education that had you make that change?
Sure. I think there's so much happening today that just especially us as parents need to be aware of. I talk a lot about the current teacher shortages because it affects so much. It's causing larger class sizes with the rise of discipline and behavioral issues in the classroom and a shortage of teachers. That's not the type of balance we want to see. Last year, opening and in September, having somewhere around 44% of teacher vacancies in schools on staff is just unheard of numbers, and that number is only expected to go up.
44% vacancies in several schools. That's almost half. So you can go watch the whole interview. It's called Deep Rooted Issues. She's a nice lady. She's a principal that said, listen, I can't handle this. A principal who quit to homeschool based on the education system itself. She goes, I don't want to put my kid through that. So as you start looking at that and learning that there's a lot of issues there, here's the thing. I think one of the things that scares a lot of parents is technology. Technology is something to be mindful of. And Laura Ingram brings up something here on Google. The Google AI attempts to rewrite history, okay? This kind of stuff is happening, and every child just about in America has access to one of these called a smartphone. But do you really feel smarter? I ask you a couple of questions. One, do you remember in the day, those of us, I'm 59, you used to have, 20, 30 phone numbers memorized. Now, because of speed dial, you don't even know your spouse's phone number. There was a time when we used to know how to get to someone's house. Well, now because of GPS, we don't really pay attention and we don't remember the names or to explain to someone else how to get there. We just say, here, just GPS it. We are allowing ourselves to be dumbed down by technology, and we're not remembering things that we once did, to me, which is formidable. I think it's happening in education. This is allowing this upcoming generation then to be completely manipulated by this artificial intelligence in the education system.
Seen and unseen, will we reveal the stories behind the headlines? And for that, we turn to Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo. All right, Raymond, Google just shut down its artificial intelligence image bot because it was spitting out erroneous images. Is there any humor in this, or is it all just bad news?
Well, there's a lot of humor. Look, in their quest to be inclusive, Laura, random races started to being imposed on historic figures. For instance, when you type in Founding Fathers, this is what Washington looked like. Do you want to see a pope? How about this? How about a Roman emperor or an astronaut?
What they were doing is taking away the whiteness, if you will, trying to make a point, and made George Washington look like he was a man of color, the Pope as an indigenous person, etc. And what they're trying to do by doing this, they're inciting in their minds, yes, somehow it's not right. White people have dominated. White people are bad. And they're bringing the shame-blame game into the younger generation. Savvy?
Now, this is just the result of the info Google put into the robot, Laura, which is an attempt to promote diversity, okay? This is Jen Janai. She oversees Google's AI Responsibility Initiative.
Oh.
I think it's okay to talk about things that you've made mistakes in because we will make mistakes.
This is the lady from Google, the AI director, Jen Janai. This is wokeness being spewed in a word salad, my friends, flavored with puke.
When we're trying to be good allies, when we're trying to be anti-racist, we will make mistakes. The point is, though, to keep trying, to keep educating yourself and getting better day to day.
No.
Google, in a statement, Raymond, is admitting that they have, quote, missed the mark here and are ending.
What? Google admitted a mistake? Let's rewind that.
Well, Google, in a statement, Raymond, is admitting that they have, quote, missed the mark here. Google, in a statement, Raymond, is admitting that they have, quote, missed the mark here. Google, in a statement, Raymond, is admitting that they have, quote, missed the mark here and are ending the images of people for now. But I don't know, it's kind of convenient, like, oh, we missed the mark. You think? Missed the mark? They're completely rewriting history. Or
Bingo. I agree with Laura Ingram. They're completely trying to rewrite history. Again, homeschooling on the rise. The Daily Caller has this. This is a lot of kids. Homeschooling's on a rise nationwide. Homeschooling is on the rise in every state that analyzes since 2017, 2018 till now, but because this is right in the middle of the Trump years. And people were trying to act like, oh, it's Donald Trump's fault that homeschool's rising. Oh, no. It even almost doubled under Biden since Biden's been president. But check this out. The number of homeschooler students increased 51% in states with comparable enrollment statistics in the last 6 school years. Can I repeat that? This is the Daily Caller. The number of homeschooler students increased by 51% in states with comparable enrollment statistics in the last 6 school years. And private school enrollment increased by 7%. Oh. There's a Christian school here in town, and I'm not gonna name their name. I'm not trying to call them out per se, but they keep raising their tuition. And I had someone talk to me the other day. They're homeschooling. They're realizing homeschooling is much more cheaper. And if Donald Trump gets this initiative passed in Agenda 47 to give parents $10,000 per child tax break to homeschool your child, not just public school, private school is going to be el histerio, or they're going to have to start making the prices lower. And see, the problem is a lot of churches are in decline, so their Christian schools are having to help carry the load financially, and that's going to be tough. It's going to cause possible layoffs, different programmings, because churches have become more of a caveat for the community than a place to serve. Most folks go to church to see what they can get, not what they can give. And we've enabled this through poor discipleship and by not teaching folks, no, you don't come here to get, you come to give. Not just your tithe and your talents. Everything shouldn't be free and everything shouldn't be paid for. I remember when the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, Bobby, his name escapes me. This was back in the late 80s, early 90s. He said the day will come when churches won't have volunteers for the nursery, etc. You'll have to pay people to do everything in your church. He goes, the day, and he's right. You can't find folks that want to volunteer and do the extra things. Back in the day, nurseries were rotate. But now you got to pay people. Your churches are just, and what's going to happen is, as you start tightening your belts in your church systems, it's, because if everyone's led by the dollar, okay? You like to say the Holy Spirit, but you're led by the dollar. If parents can see, hey, if we're getting $10,000 per kid, that's $30,000. Hey, mama can stay home. She didn't have to work now. Mama can stay home, homeschool the kids, and we can have a little bit happier family maybe, because the average homeschool family, do you know this may shock or rue you, but it only takes 4.5, maybe 5 hours max a day to homeschool and get through all your subjects, even extracurriculars. Most kids through public education, by the time they're put on a bus, go through the education process and in an extracurricular activity, if you will, they're spending almost 8.5 to 9, 10-hour days at school, 5 days a week. Now ask yourself, would I rather my kids spend 5 hours with me, Mwabi, the parent, or 10 hours with strangers? And I don't know what they're teaching because they won't tell me. That's an easy yes. If Trump gets in and he passes this, this is going to be one of those things where folks are going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is him, another clip saying, I'm going to be the champion for homeschoolers.
And it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more. To every homeschool family, I will be your champion. Do not vote Democrat. They are looking to destroy you. If you don't mind my saying that, Joe Biden can't put two sentences together, and yet he's looking to destroy you. Do not vote Democrat. Do not vote for Crooked Joe. Vote for Honest Donald. Thank you very much.
Now, that's September 14, 2003, okay, when he put this out. So Biden was still in the race at that time. So I played that for you to ask yourself. A lot of folks, you make your decision. I was teasingly saying it's not the Holy Spirit, it's the almighty dollar that leads a lot of you. If you had the opportunity, now some of you have career ambitions and you don't want to stay home. I understand. I'm not Neanderthal. I've got 3 daughters. I want them all to pursue their goals. I've got one that still wants to pursue her doctorate, and I hope she does. But I know this. We made sacrifices when I was a youth pastor. And youth pastors, we don't make a whole lot of money. But we opted for Judy to stay home. We adjusted our lifestyle to not depend on a second income. And then I did side jobs when I could. And extra things. I'm not too proud. When I was in seminary, I delivered pizzas. I worked at a furniture shop. I did all kind of things on top of being a youth pastor because I did not want Judy to work. I wanted her to stay home, homeschool the kids, and get my children through those formative years. Then in junior high, we put them in a Christian school, etc., in town that we trusted in. Very good school. My point in saying that is not everyone can do that. I know. There's single parents out there that say, listen, I'd love to homeschool my kid, but my spouse is gone for various reasons. They're single parents, and they're like going, I can't. Well, there's a thing called co-op. I just want to throw that out to you. That's where there's a group of homeschool parents that come together, and they help teach their children. And every now and then, if you have a friendship and a relationship, they'll allow a single parent's kid to join their co-op, and you'll, of course, probably sign some agreements, say, hey, that we're not going to sue you or nothing, and you do background checks, make sure you're good with everybody, but you help teach your children. Sounds good to me. We've used our gymnasium here. We've helped several homeschool groups. They get started, and then they get their own. Got one down the road. They finally got their own facility, but they rented our place for 2 years for their junior high and high school. Had another group that rented for a year, and now they outgrew us, and they've expanded to a much larger church facility down the road. Good for them. I love to help homeschoolers because I believe it's a great way for parents to spend time with their kids. There is a guy named, you may have heard Tim Hawkins, but he has a song about the homeschool family. Let's listen to this before we go to the break.
Some people say we're goofy, mysterious and spooky. Our neighbors think we're kooky, a homeschool family. We drive a white conversion, we learn about the Persians. Our 6-year-old's a surgeon, a homeschool family. We learn about creation and classic education. We're sponsoring a Haitian, a homeschool family.
Meek. Unique. Geek.
The parents are the tutors, we build our own computers. We never go to Hooters, a homeschool family. Have recess in the foyer, and then we read Tom Sawyer. Our 9-year-old's a lawyer, a homeschool family. We never leave our dwelling, our children are excelling. They're champions at spelling, a homeschool family.
I'll be back.
This is Greg Lane. I live in Hickson, Tennessee, and I just want to tell you how much I enjoy the Macil Duncan radio show. Man, I like to listen to it because he talks facts. I love the guy because he loves Jesus, and it's where I go to find out information what's going on in the world. But just awesome. I'm glad you guys have him on there, and just keep on keeping on. We love Macil Duncan. This is Greg Lane from Hickson, Tennessee.
WVMG Chattanooga.
Little boy blue, come blow on your horn. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. You've messed up again. What's the matter with you? Can't you do anything right? Worthless little brat.
What a child learns about violence, a child learns for life.
Somebody's going to get hit.
Teach carefully. We can show you how. We're ACT, Adults and Children Together Against Violence. And if you're a parent or caregiver, we can help you teach your child how to rise above violence, not succumb to it. Visit actagainstviolence.org for details, or call 877-ACT-WISE for a free brochure. Call today, 877-ACT-WISE, and stop violence before it starts. This message brought to you by the Ad Council, the American Psychological Association, and the MetLife Foundation.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent? 1 in 260,000. The odds of this born racer having 157 career top 10 finishes in NASCAR? 1 in 125 billion. But every driver seeks the pinnacle of their achievements. The odds of him winning both the Daytona 500 and the Brickyard 400 in the same year, 1 in 195 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm NASCAR driver Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day, I found out I had something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back, my friend. This is Macil Duncan. This is the Macil Duncan Radio Show, and I'm broadcasting live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And thanks to Street Level America and USAHeartbeat.com, I am in 37 states now, Mexico and Canada. Thanks all of you that like and share the show, and share it to your friends. It helps get the word out. Well, the general facts and statistics of homeschooling, there's 3.1 million, according to this study, of homeschoolers between 2021 and 2022. And that was grades K through 12 in the United States. Roughly 6% of school-aged children, okay? There were about 2.5 million homeschool students in the spring of 2019, which was 3 to 4%, okay? The homeschool population has been growing at an estimated 2 to 8% annually over the past several years. But it grew drastically in 2019 to 2020 and 2020 to 2021. As we all know, that was the COVID. And I think a lot of parents realized, hey, they were having us learn from home, public and private school, and some of them were saying, I think I could do this. It gave a lot of confidence. Ouchie the Fauci, the silver lining, if you want to call it, out of the COVID crisis, wasn't just finding out that the vaccines were a failure, but it was also that that public education was a failure. We came to find out a strategy was being done by the public school system nationwide. Quit sending homework home, so parents don't know what you're teaching them. Many parents did not pick up on this till COVID, when their children were being taught, and parents were listening in, if you will, and having to help their kids with their assignments. They were shocked. They were stunned, especially when some of the teachers were saying, this is my time with the students. I'm asking all parents to leave the room now. And this one mother fussed back online to the teacher, this is my house. Now that you said that, I plan on sitting here and hearing everything you have to say. The teacher tried to engage in an argument online with a parent. Bad move. Because all the mother did was record the conversation. Needless to say, the principal and the school board of that little area had lots to deal with. Once you get a mama bear upset, my friend, they're going to protect their cubs. And so that's the thing I think was happening. And a lot of folks realize, hey, there is a big difference between saying, hey, I don't agree with you, than to challenging people and downing, especially the teacher. I think she thought the parent was degrading her in front of her students, but she was just politely saying, no, I'm staying in here, and then she kept on. But anyway, regardless of how you view either one, homeschool basically was revitalized even more so because parents were saying, I'm homeschooling anyway. The private schools took a hit. A lot of them said, why am I sending tuition to you if I'm doing all the work here? So a lot of private schools lost people. So anyway, go back to the study. Homeschooling, that is parent-led home-based education. Home education is an old traditional education practice. They try to throw things in and make it sound bad. That a decade ago appeared to be cutting edge and alternative, but is now bordering on mainstream in the United States. It may be the fastest growing form of education in the United States. Home-based education has also been growing around the world in many other nations: Australia, Canada, France, Hungary, Japan, Kenya, Russia, Mexico, South Korea, Thailand, and the United Kingdom. A demographically wide variety of people homeschool. These are atheists, Christians, Mormons, conservatives, libertarians, and liberals. Low and middle and high income families now. Black, Hispanic, white parents. PhD, GEDs, no high school diploma or high school diploma. One Nation study shows 41% of homeschool students are black, Asian, Hispanic, and others. They've always got to bring the race into this thing. Anyway, taxpayers spend an average. This is the one that's going to get your attention, okay? This is going to make some of you go, shabammer whammer, I did not know this, okay? Are you ready? Taxpayers spend on average, now every state's different, but on average nationwide, do you know how much you spend per pupil per year? Now again, New York's a lot more expensive than here in Tennessee. But the average is $16,446 per pupil annually in public schools, plus capital expenditures. National Education Association put this out in 2023. The roughly 3.1 million homeschool students in 2021 through 2022 represented a savings of over $51 billion for taxpayers. So they're seeing this as a possible advantage to the national budget crisis, if you will. So homeschooling saved the government $51 billion that American taxpayers did not have to spend. Could that be the strategy that Donald Trump is seeing when he says, hey, I am going to help all homeschool? Here's again is the minute statement Donald Trump said in his Agenda 47, if elected.
President, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available.
Now, here's the thing. He said $10,000 per child for homeschooling. The average cost per child is $600 per student annually for their education. Now, this is because a lot of parents are having to penny pinch. Can you imagine if you went from saying, hey, I've only got $600 per child to spend to $10,000? I think a lot of education's about to take a huge, awesome, because here's some things you could do. If President Trump does this, what you could do with $10,000 per child is make sure your child gets three things. I love the threes, okay? But three things. One, to get the good education that you can provide. Secondly, a tutor or a specialized, if you see your child excels in maybe mathematics or some, you could then put them maybe in a speed or a high level course, savvy? And thirdly, for parents that have kids in high school, 9th through 12th, they could start taking classes in the community colleges and stuff that would build up college credits. So when their child graduates from homeschool, they may could knock off 2 years of college degree, making their college experience less expensive and help the child get into the career path a little quicker. Lots of positive here. Or the other thing is a trade school. Possibly you could have a trade school. There's a lot of options if that $10,000 per family goes through. Now again, I'm going off the average. Some of you say, "Hey, man, so mine's $2,000 per kid right now." It could be, depending on where you live, expenses, etc. Don't know. But just think about it. If you had $10,000 per child tax credit, that means money you would spend on taxes you could spend on your children. I think that's a win-win, cha-ching, cha-ching, and it's probably going to inspire some votes his way, I would say. Homeschooling is quickly growing in popularity among minorities. 41% of families that are non-white, 41% are homeschooling now. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is a fact. Most Hispanic families have a Catholic and a very religious, they're a tight-knit family culture. You give them the opportunity, and this is two things that could happen. One, it would expedite their desire to be legal citizens because they'd want the tax cut. The second thing it would do, it would allow their parents to be a part of homeschooling, but then we could provide material. What is America? And give, because what is the thing about homeschooling is homeschooling tends to have the less minutia, if you have. Now I know there's probably out there some liberal homeschool material, but most homeschool material is factual. It's about real history, real literature, real mathematics. I mean, you go to Common Core. Have you ever seen Common Core mathematics? You can't do like 4 + 4 = 8 anymore. They want you to do all these crazy things, and I think it's on purpose to confuse the children so that they can't do basic addition and subtraction. Have you drove up to and I've done this several times, to a drive-through and you hand them a 20? There's so many kids that can't make change. They look at you like a deer in headlights. And one kid, I remember, he got out his phone and was using his calculator. He didn't know how much change to give me back. See, everybody wants you to tap the card, tap the card. I'm going to be the dinosaur that says I'm hanging on to my cash. I'm going to write checks. I'm slowing this bus down as much as I can. You guys may speed right over top of me, but I'll grab onto the bumper and I'm going to slow it down, because once you go cashless and checkless and everything is just in your phone and in the cloud, then they can click you off. You have nothing tangible for your expenses. You're at the mercy of whoever has control of the on-off switch. If you don't believe me, look what happened in China. A lot of folks that stood during COVID against some things politically against Xi, they found their bank accounts were wiped clean, and they could do nothing about it because everything's digital now in pretty much in China. Anyway, back to the subject. So if you start thinking about this, $10,000 per kid. Now, again, if you just joined us, the taxpayers spend an average of $16,446 per pupil. And they said in 2021, 2022, that saved the federal government $51 billion for taxpayers. Now, that may be what's all going over to the Ukraine. We don't know. But $51 billion, not million, but billion. It's a lot of money. Now, I want you to think about this. If Donald Trump is for real about this, and he's going to give you $10,000 per child tax credit, and you're able to use that to help your child's betterment, I don't know of a parent in the world that say, hey, I may not agree with Trump on some other things, but that's one thing, man, cha-ching in the pocket, but betterment of my child, that's going to be hard to overlook on Election Day. Well, No Child Left Behind. This is it's a decade of failure, and I just want to bring this out to you and see if you guys know this. This is back when George Bush was president.
And signed by President Bush. Today, its performance is beyond dispute. The act came with a massive infusion of new federal spending and federal control, but student achievement has been flat, and states have less flexibility today than before the act was passed.
States have less flexibility. See, the No Child Left Behind that Bush brought in, it sounded so good. Hey, a kid in Alaska moves to Tennessee. We want to make sure that they're learning the same thing so no child gets left behind. It sounded so good on the trail. But what it did was it gave the government an excuse to monopolize government. See, we're supposed to be against monopolies, but then they can monopolize, and most teachers will tell you in public education, you're teaching your kid to take a test, a standardized test, because if they pass or if your school makes such, you get more money. Sammy? So you're not teaching them so much to learn for them, you're teaching them to learn to pass the test so that the school board and they get these big kickbacks. In the big cities, don't forget, in Chicago, the whole school board walked away from the Chicago mayor because of his practices, and he fired the school board superintendent. Now in Chicago, which I think is crazy, the school board superintendent gets to pick the school board members. The people don't. See, that's what happens when you don't pay attention and you don't go to the polls. It's not just about the president. It trickles down to state and local political issues. And if you're not careful, you keep skippity-doo-don and don't showing up on voting, you're going to find yourself reading in the newspaper, by the way, it's now illegal to do this or that. And you're saying, I'm an American. And they're going to say, yeah, but you didn't show up to vote. Now, you've lost your powers, your privileges, etc. It could happen. It happened in Chicago. They're now at the mercy because now, without a superintendent, the mayor is going to appoint a school board first, then a superintendent, so that person will not be able to supersede his selection. See, that's totalitarian. That is emperor rule. People are upset about it. But that's where you got to go. Hey, Chicago, man, once a great city. The Bulls, Michael Jordan, yeah, the Sox. But now, it's just, I don't know, the Bears. You guys remember Chicago Bears back in the day? The fridge and sweetness and all that? Yeah. By the way, Jim McMahon made the top 10 quarterbacks of the 90s that were controversial. You got to go watch that. It's ESPN's special. Jim McMahon was hilarious, and some of the stuff he did. All right, I digress. So as you're looking at this homeschooling, I thought some of you'd like to know some of that. Let me skip over here. Why public education is failing. Now, they compared it, and I'm not going to play the first 2 minutes. What if the government mandated you had to go to certain grocery stores based on your zip code? If they did that, some grocery stores would be nice, depending on where it was located. Some might be more crime-ridden and bad. Therefore, you could not drive to another zip code to shop. You had to shop in your area only. Well, that's what they've done with school. Listen to this guy. It's a great analogy.
Let's consider what we did with public education. The government opened up thousands of government schools, and you're assigned one based off of your address to which your child is required to attend by law. You have little to no say over the classes or curriculum offered, and any changes you might want to see will include a long and expensive political battle. Your teachers are not compensated by how well they educate your child, but almost exclusively by their seniority. And if you think that is a bad system, then you're told that, you guessed it, you hate public education and you despise our teachers. All of us want a good education, not only for our children, but for everyone. And yet we're continuously accused every time we advocate for even the most minor reforms. Our current system is failing not only our students, but our teachers. And if COVID has taught us anything with public education, it's that we don't need more government monopolies controlling the system. What we need are more options, because that is the only way we are ever going to get an education system as diverse as the students we are trying to serve, and is the only way we're going to put power back in the hands of teachers as opposed to bureaucrats. I'm going to tell you what I think is the greatest threat to our freedom, and it's probably not the typical answer you get. Hi, my name is Nick Freitas. I'm a former Green Beret combat veteran with 2 tours in Iraq. I currently serve as a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, and I've had the opportunity to go all over the world to study different government, economic, and social systems. This has afforded me the chance to speak to thousands of people in person and millions of more online. I believe that the greatest threat to freedom is the rejection of the idea of objective truth. Experience has taught me that there are no shortage of people in power all over the world that will tell you whatever you want to hear in order to control and manipulate you, especially if they think it's for your own good. But here at the Y Minutes, what we're concerned about is the pursuit of truth.
What a testimony. So this guy is being serious about trying to change things. But I want to ask you something. What if they took off the zip code restrictions in public school? They would fail miserably at first, but then competition breeds success. What if, just let's say Chattanooga, for instance, what if East Ridge, Red Bank, Soddy Daisy, Tyner, different, what if the parents could choose which school their kids go to, not based on where they live, but where they want their child to go? You're saying, well, one school would get overpopulated. No, there would be a max out. But what would happen is, so let's just pick Tyner. Let's say Tyner became the premier school everybody wanted to go to. Well, it would force Red Bank, Hickson, everybody would say, hey, Tyner's got a plan there. The parents seem to like that school. They're willing to drive their kids or get their kids to Tyner High School because they're offering a quality education. Those kids that are graduating are showing a very high level of success in career and future education. I think I'd like to send my kid there. See, that's why here in Chattanooga, so many parents put their kids either at Baylor, GPS, or Macaulay. Those are your 3 premier private schools here in Chattanooga, and they've been around a long time. Now, Baylor made a move, 2 decades ago to go co-ed. It used to be an all-boys school. And when I was in high school, the GPS was the only girls' school. Now, I got invited to proms. I used to be thinner. Let's just leave it at that. But I got to go to GPS's prom. A young lady asked me to go with her, and it was interesting. Boy, they had the white animals that night to play, had a great music and great food. But I remember going on that campus, and we took a little tour and stuff. Beautiful campus. Now, I've driven by it since, I'm not knocking GPS, but the outside entrance doesn't look as pretty as it did 20 years ago. Why? Because I think the tuition's so high. I'm on a spiffball in here. A lot of these institutions are having to raise their prices because people can't afford it. So the very few that can, they have to make them pay more for the less. And some may say, hey, I like that. I like my kid in a small environment. But what at the public school? They did away with the zip code restrictions. Now, let me give you an example. When I was in high school, Hickson High School, back in the 80s, got the Ronald Reagan Award. I don't know if you knew this. They were in the top 1% of all high schools in the nation. Hickson High School there in Chattanooga. And it was so talked about. Instead of everybody saying, way to go, Hickson High School, well, all the other schools said, not fair, not fair. And they broke up a big chunk of that faculty and shipped them out all across the county in an attempt to, I think, lower that school's education. Now, the schools did okay for a while, but sure enough, Hickson High School took a blow. And that's sad. Instead of celebrating the success of Hickson High School back in the 80s, and they were in the top 1% in the nation, that should have been, hey, way to go. All the other schools should have been saying, what are they doing that we're not? But I remember one of the things they said, that Hickson High School was too white. They weren't diversified enough. And shortly after that, they started busing people and making kids ride buses, sometimes an hour a day, busing kids. Now, this is where they did break the zip code thing just purely for race reasons, not for education reasons. Go back, the Jimmy Carter, 1976, probably the worst president we ever elected. Yeah, he knew Jesus, but he knew nothing else. He was a failure, abysmal failure as a president. He gave away the Panama Canal. He gave amnesty to all the cowards that went to Canada, didn't want to fight in the wars. The economy was terrible. Couldn't get the hostages released. He was a terrible president. But because he was a Southern Baptist Christian, a lot of folks voted for him based strictly on that. I think that's the last Democrat my family has ever supported that I'm aware of. With that said, it was during that Jimmy Carter up to Reagan years that Hickson High School was excelling, and then Ronald Reagan noticed it and said, wow, Hickson High School, way to go, good job, go Wildcats, if you will. They even brought in Amy Grant to do, back before Amy Grant was big time, they had Amy Grant do a concert there at the school. Now again, I went to Red Bank. Hickson was our arch rival back then, but I lived on Boy Scout Road. I could have rode my bike to Hickson High School. But because of all that other stuff, by the time this all blew out, I had to get on a bus and ride to Red Bank. Spend an hour there and an hour home. 2 hours of my day on a school bus. And we didn't have any of these suckers here to occupy our time. Smartphone I held up for those on the radio. So anyway, Hickson's High School is a great example back in the 80s. If they did away with the zip code, I think you'd start seeing parents say, hey, I want my kid at that school. And the schools, and the other thing I think would be great is that they got their funding based through the states. If they did away with the Department of Education, I'm about to go, here's what could happen. Hey, I know you guys are going to think I'm crazy. What if they started not only getting state funding, but they were allowed to get sponsors? And anyway, it's at the 4 o'clock break. I've rambled enough. Got some good stuff for you in the second hour. And then at the 5 o'clock hour, Tammy Dana from Georgia will be joining me. She is my boots-on-the-ground Georgia voter because Jolene Carter from Virginia will be on tomorrow, Tammy today, and Maria Wagner will be Thursday. But Georgia and Virginia have something in common. They keep flip-flopping between blue and red. What is the biggest reason? Well, education was the big one for Virginia that put it over the top back in the day. We'll get back to you after these breaks and after these messages. This is the Macil Duncan Show live from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
A progressive campaign group in Michigan is shifting their support away from the Democratic ticket, putting Democrats' hopes for a victory in the swing state in jeopardy. Abandon Harris, a group critical of the vice president, has endorsed Green Party candidate Jill Stein with specific intention to remove support from the Democratic Party.
We need to be clear about what our goals are. We are not in a position to win the White House. But we do have a real opportunity to win something historic. We could deny Kamala Harris the state of Michigan.
The group argues the Biden-Harris administration has abandoned progressive policies. Their endorsement of Stein is seen as a signal of disillusionment from the party's left-wing base and may affect Democratic turnout. The endorsement comes from a large demographic of primarily Muslim Americans in Michigan, citing anger at the Democratic Party for supporting Israel in the war with Hamas. Trump also has sided with Israel throughout his entire 2024 campaign, recently saying he is Israel's protector. A recent poll in the region shows 40% of Muslim voters backed Stein, while Trump and Harris trail behind at 18% and 12% respectively. Michigan is home to one of the largest Arab communities in the United States. Stein, a Jewish longtime progressive and Green Party candidate with anti-Israel sympathies, previously ran for president in 2012 and 2016. While her progressive platform includes environmental advocacy, universal health care, and economic reform, she is not without controversy. In past elections, Stein has been accused of being a spoiler candidate by some Democrats, who argue that her campaigns drew away votes from the Democratic Party, ultimately aiding Republican victories. Stein has defended her role, stating that voters deserve more options beyond the two-party system and that the Democratic Party must be held accountable to progressive values. The endorsement could have an effect on the election in Michigan in a race that is already tight. Stein's support may actually be significant enough to be noticed. When she last ran in 2016, Trump's victory margin was smaller than total Stein votes in key swing states. For more unbiased updates and straight facts, download the Straight Arrow News app or visit us online.
North Korea carried out a series of explosions on Tuesday, destroying sections of unused inter-Korean roads and rail lines on its side of the heavily fortified border with South Korea. The South Korean military confirmed that the blast occurred along the two lines which connect the two Koreas. These actions follow North Korea's recent declaration that it would cut all rail and road links with the South and fortify its border, signaling a further breakdown in relations. According to the South Korean Joint Chiefs of Staff, the North deployed heavy equipment near the affected areas to continue dismantling the infrastructure. In response, South Korean forces fired warning shots south of the military demarcation line, although there was no damage reported on the South Korean side. South Korea's unification ministry condemned the act, calling it a violation of previous agreements, and described the North's action as highly abnormal. Tensions have been rising over the past year, with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un officially designating South Korea as a hostile state in December of 2023. The North has engaged in various provocative actions, including sending trash balloons across the border since May of 2024 in response to similar balloon launches by anti-regime activists in South Korea. Pyongyang has also accused the South of flying drones over its territory and distributing anti-North Korea leaflets, further heightening hostilities. Last week, North Korea reportedly communicated with U.S. forces stationed in South Korea about its plans to fortify the border in an attempt to avoid any misunderstandings or accidental conflicts. Despite this, tensions remain high, with South Korea warning that any provocation from the North will be met with strong retaliation. The destroyed rail lines and roads were initially part of inter-Korean cooperation projects established after a 2018 summit when the two Koreas made efforts to restore cross-border connectivity. South Korea invested over $132 million in these projects through loans to the North, which Pyongyang remains obligated to repay. This is not the first time North Korea has destroyed infrastructure tied to inter-Korean agreements. In 2020, it blew up a joint liaison office on its side of the border after nuclear talks with the United States collapsed. For more of our unbiased, straight facts reporting, download the Straight Arrow News app.
Welcome back, my friends. This is the Macil Duncan Show. My name is Macil Duncan. I'm your host, and broadcasting live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And hope you guys are having a good day. It's been a fairly cooler time here in Tennessee. We're getting cooler, chilly mornings and evenings. We're getting still our sunshine in the middle of the day, but this week they're calling for a little bit. It's going to be dropping 20-some degrees than what it's been, so it's going to be a little chillier. I say that because we're collecting jackets, blankets, etc. for the homeless downtown Chattanooga. If you'd like to provide, you maybe have some jackets or some sweaters or hoodies that still have some good wear. Could you wash them up, bring them by the Appison Food Pantry, socks, anything that helps people stay warm. We're also going to be taking a supply run up to North Carolina, and they don't want clothing as much as they would like blankets. So if you'd like to donate blankets for our run to North Carolina, we've adopted a home there. We're helping him rebuild his home. His name's Jeff, and I talked with him today, and we're going to try to help him. His goal is to try to get into his house before winter. Well, it's kind of here, but he would like to get in his bedroom and his bathroom primarily. He'll have a heater in there, and then he'll just keep rebuilding the rest of his house. I don't know if you can imagine this, but I've been to the house and I did a video. It's on my page. But he lost everything of value. His furniture, 4 cars were blown down. I mean, it got up almost 6 foot of water level, and they had to evacuate, of course. But if you can imagine losing all your furniture, all your appliances, all your memorabilia, your photos, things that you dearly care about. Not only that, your house, you have to scrape all the mud out, and then you have to pull all the rotten wood, the flooring, the sheetrock. Then you have to, after you get it out, spray it with a demolder bleach, let it dry, and then try to start back your construction. So if you'd like to help us with that, we're collecting funds at www.appisonbaptist.com. That's APISON, appisonbaptist.com, and check missions on the giving suite there. And we're trying to raise several $1,000s for him. We're at $2,000 now. I'd love to raise a few more thousand to help him with the expense, because the sheetrock, the plywood, we're going to try to buy some carpet and or other things that just put on the floor. We've had a brand new bed donated. One of our widow ladies had bought it, and it's got drawers underneath and a new mattress. He's so excited about that. So it's the little things that matter. Pray about it. See if you'd like to be a part. Getting back to our education topic today, I don't know if you guys know this, but a new statistic for just 2024, and it's very recent, says how many parents homeschool in the United States. Parents of more than 3.7 million children in the United States in 2024 are homeschooling. So that's pretty amazing. So 3.7 million. One of the stats here had it 3.1 million. So that's interesting. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're just joining the show, in the National Education Association reported this in 2023, by the way. From 2021 to 2022, the average cost per child, public education, is $16,446 per pupil annually in the Department of Education, if you will. By pulling that many kids out, it saved the taxpayers $51 billion, not million, billion, $51 billion. And so with that, you're thinking, hey, that's a lot of money. It helps out the country. Homeschooling actually is a win-win. It helps the children, and I think it helps the country. But here is what Donald Trump said that he will do, because they gave a $10,000 tax break for people that did private education. But that didn't really help the middle-class America. He's going to fix that, he said.
Honored to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year.
Now take note of that. It's called 529 savings accounts. You put up to $10,000 per child in a savings account, and all the expenses, if they're used for your kid, savvy, is good. So I'm going to repeat. It's a 529 savings account. This is Donald Trump.
The Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to.
You got to get this legal jargon. It's 529 education accounts.
Education savings accounts families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12.
And he's saying he's going to make that available to homeschool as well if he gets in. So that's powerful, powerful. Where is homeschooling legal? And I was shocked by this. Do you know the top 10 most legal states that are most friendly, if you will? There's 50 states. I'm going to tell you the top 10 most friendly, and then the top 8 that are very unfriendly. This is what's going to shockaroo you. Only one southern state is friendly in the top 10. Now, not that you can't homeschool, but Tennessee's, we're not in the top 10. I was shocked, and neither was Alabama. Now, Alabama is the most conservative state. In a recent poll 2 months ago, it is the most conservative state with only 12% of the Alabama population claiming to be liberal, if you will. So, are you ready? Here is the homeschooling top 10. At number 1 is Idaho. Idaho got a score of 83. Indiana tied it with a score of 83. Utah. Now, this doesn't surprise me because Mormons are big on homeschooling because they like teaching their values and culture within their family. So Utah is third at 82. This one may shockaroo you, but Arkansas is 4. Arkansas. How about that? They come in at 81 total score. Alaska. Who would have thought Alaska's number 5 with 80? But you think about it, they do have challenges with the winters and the snow. Maybe that's part of it. But anyway, they're number 5. Idaho, Indiana, Utah, Arkansas, Alaska. Guess who's number 6? This one blew my brain. I had no idea. This was one of the highest, easiest places to homeschool, especially with all the political drama we've had. Arizona. Arizona. How about that? Idaho, Indiana, Utah, Arkansas, Alaska, and Arizona's number 6. They got a score of 78, being one of the easiest states to homeschool your children. Didn't see that coming with Arizona and all the problems. Number 7, Wyoming. They got a 76 score. Nevada. How about that? Nevada. And then Texas got a 74. And then the last rounding out is Mississippi, the only southern state really mentioned. So those were the states it's easiest to homeschool in. I'll run them off again real quick. Idaho, Indiana, Utah, Arkansas, Alaska, Arizona, Wyoming, Nevada, and Texas, Mississippi. Interesting, is it not? You could go, if you want to read the article for yourself and get some more of the details with it. Let me see. Go up here to the top. I typed in World Population Review. This is not a really a conservative or liberal site. It just gives you stuff. And I went to Brave search engine. Go to Brave search engine. Don't use Google. Brave, B-R-A-V-E. It gives you real, truthful statistics. But and then you go look at the you got Idaho and then, but you could go and type in. So I'm going to type in I'm going to click Tennessee and see what it is. It says about Tennessee. I thought Tennessee. It's not telling me. Okay, anyway. Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Virginia, and Maryland are somewhere there in the top 20. Interesting. It doesn't give the number like it did the other. But anyway, now let me go to another site that lists the states that's the hardest to homeschool. Again, this may shockaroo you with some of these. These are the states it's hardest to homeschool. Number 1. Ohio. I know that's J.D. Vance's home state. The number one most difficult state to homeschool in America is Ohio, home of Jim Jordan. Who would have thought Ohio would be the hardest state? I thought it's the hardest to homeschool. Ohio, the Rust Belt. I mean, I really was shocked by that. Number 2 is North Dakota. I was shocked by that. Number 3 is Vermont. Number 4 is New York. I expected New York to be higher, the state of New York, but it's only number 4. Number 5, Rhode Island. Number 6 is Massachusetts. Again, I thought Massachusetts would be higher. But number 7, this may explain a lot with the political fodder we've had. The 7th most difficult state to homeschool in America, Georgia. Georgia. The once strong red state, back when Newt Gingrich contracted with America, it's now, it's flip-flopping between blue and red. Tammy will be on the show. She's my Georgia boots on the ground, and she's going to bring some good stuff up. Number 8 is Pennsylvania. Think about the electoral map now. Who are we battling? Pennsylvania. They said Pennsylvania could, or Georgia could, decide the presidential election. They're both in the top 8 hardest schools to homeschool, meaning they don't want the children to be freely taught by their parents. And then Ohio being number 1. Now, the interesting thing about North Dakota, because South Dakota governor, and they're not in the top 10 easiest, but at least they're not in the hardest. But North Dakota, right above South Dakota, there's a lot of implications here that as you start just looking at this. So these are the 8 states that are hardest to homeschool in the United States, and typically those that are most restrictive to homeschool laws. They hinder parental ability to teach. They make it harder that they have to register, take more testing, etc. And so interesting. I just thought that that was something I did not expect. If I was at random going to pick the top 10 easiest and the top 8 hardest, I think I would have came up with a whole bunch of different states, is all I'm going to say. Well, Forbes said this: the rise of homeschooling is making a transformative impact on education. Now, Forbes, for them to say this, that's pretty big, because he's all about the money, Forbes. But as you heard what Trump said, or they said $51 billion was saved, the American taxpayer dollar in 2023, because homeschooling is up so much. They may start looking at homeschooling. Hey, it saves us money, but the problem is the liberals don't care about money. They have all the money they want. They want the minds of your children. They want to rape them, molest them, and control them. That's their job. That's what the liberals want. In recent years, homeschooling has experienced an unprecedented surge, largely driven by the pandemic-induced shift to the remote learning model. While the model worked well in some circumstances, it did face criticism and challenges. One major challenge was that hands-on learning experiences, such as science experiments, art projects, became difficult to replicate in the virtual environment, impacting students' comprehension and engagement. The prolonged period of remote learning also took a toll on students' mental health and increased stress, anxiety, and feelings of loneliness reported. I'm not buying that, but anyway, Forbes is a liberal. Parents face the additional burden of balancing their own work responsibilities with supervising children, etc. But they have to, I guess, put some of those negatives in there, because they have to admit homeschooling. Now, I've got to ask you, if this is true, if everyone's stressed, everyone's depressed, it's so bad, then why does it keep increasing? Now, you may say, well, they're Dallas Cowboy fans. They love pain. Dallas, oh, you got cream Sunday. Oh, I think Dak should have to take a pay cut. That's embarrassing. Anyway, that's just me. But the homeschooling education approach allows parents or guardians to educate their children at home rather than sending them to a traditional public or private school, homeschooling families typically design their own curriculum. That's not true. We order books and workbooks and material. We just don't allow you to control it. But in many cases, homeschooling is a choice made by families seeking more flexibility, personalized instructions, or alignment with their values and beliefs. That is true. So that is true. So that was Forbes magazine reporting on it. And then you have the USA Today. I thought this was interesting. Parents consider homeschooling to build Christian values. Now, this was back in 2017. I just wanted to see if USA Today did anything favorable. It's time for Christians to homeschool our children. The reasons are numerous. Now, by the way, 2017, Donald Trump had just taken office. Remember? All right. Our values differ, or should, from those of National Education Association. And many administrators, the governmental decided years ago, the state religion and secular humanism, that is alone would be taught in schools. I think her name was Betsy DeVos, whoever Trump picked as his education. She was an abysmal failure. We found out later she was not the conservative we were led to believe, and she went along with a lot of crazy stuff. I'm hoping he picks someone much more much tougher. The kids deserve the best. Now, I'll tell you somebody, I know he was over urban development, Ben Carson. He would be an excellent over the public education. I think that'd be someone, to me, worth considering. A man of faith, a man that's proved himself, and he's overcome a lot. Because he'll tell you his personal story. If you haven't heard, it's a really awesome one. But Agenda 47, President Trump pledges homeschool families. Here, I'll read it for you on the pledge. In a new Agenda 47 video, President Donald Trump promised to serve as a champion for American homeschool families. As president, it was my honor to support American homeschool families and to protect the God-given right for every parent to be the steward of their children's education. He went on to say, I pledge to allow homeschool parents to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free, and spend on costs associated with homeschooling education. And that would include field trips. I mean, lots to consider there. That's a huge game changer, because homeschooling is becoming a very coveted voting bloc. Okay? So, interesting. I think it's going to be, I think the group will be courted. You mark my words, over the next several years, let's say Trump gets in, and he does all this to make homeschooling easier and gives them these savings accounts. And say a Democrat wants to come in and take that away. You're talking about folks like it when you give them something good and then you try to take it away. This could be one of those things that helps the Republicans, much like the Democrats opened up the border to try to get in new voters for them. If Donald Trump wins and he makes this homeschooling thing a reality, $10,000 per child, Republicans could possibly, because what they do is they're going to teach their children Judeo-Christian values, most of them, or good Christian values. They're going to teach them things and not let the DEI get in there. And I know some atheists and others are homeschooling, but the majority of them are Christians or people of faith. Think about that voting block 10 years from now, 15 years from now. This, you're talking about open the borders of education. This could be huge. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy, I can't ever say his name quite right, he said if we're going to move the education on for our children, he said we've got to cut off the head of the snake. See what you think.
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers' unions at the local level to allow public schools to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that frankly every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen of this country. And the fact of the matter is, look, there's a part of education policy that also rests with the family. I didn't grow up in money, but you know the word privilege gets used a lot? Well, you know what? I did have the ultimate privilege of 2 parents in the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, contributing to an epidemic of fatherlessness. And I think that goes hand in glove with the education crisis as well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
Now that is Vivek Swamy. This is back when he was in the presidential run, but that was powerful. Just that opening line. Let's hear it again.
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education.
Let's cut off the head, the Department of Education. Interesting, is it not? We're about to go to break. Here again is Tim Hawkins, the Christian comedian that's also a homeschool advocate.
We got any homeschoolers here tonight? Any homeschooler? Hey! Yeah, you can tell the homeschoolers in the audience, they're the ones looking around. Who's all these other people, Mama? They all came in holding a rope. Now we got this new family at our church, 10 kids. I'll start with letter J. Trying to figure that out. There's John, James, Jesse, Jennifer, Julie, Jenga. She's kind of unstable. Juniper, Jet Fuel, Jar Jar Binks, and Juan. Yeah, I think...
That's Tim Hawkins. He's a blast. I'll be back after the break.
Hi, this is Kat from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I just wanted to say how much I love your show. I love the topics that you cover and all the special guests that you have come online. It keeps things really fun and interesting. Thank you.
WVMG Chattanooga.
Okay, so Sarah, I'm dropping you off at Emily's.
Yep.
And Josh, you're going to?
Soccer, Dad. Soccer practice.
Right. Oh, by the way, I just wanted to let you know when I pick you both up, I'll be wearing my short shorts.
What? No!
Yep, and my dorky dad hat, and I'm going to do my dad dance for all your friends. They'll love it!
Seriously? Why?
Because I like my short shorts. Of course, I could be talked out of it if you guys would just buckle up your seatbelts without giving me a hard time.
It's important to get your kids to buckle up for safety, no matter what it takes. And sometimes, all it takes is your parental powers of persuasion.
Okay, we're buckling up. See, all buckled.
Good choice. I'll just have to do my dad dance at dinner time.
What?
No!
Do what you have to make sure your kids are wearing their seatbelts, even on short drives. Never give up until they buckle up. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council. Visit safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup for more information.
All those smiling, happy faces, laughing, enjoying life. Then I turn the TV off, and I'm back to reality. The faces here are not so happy after the spill. I mean, just look around. The fourth-generation shop owner who'd give anything to turn on his dusty open sign. The fisherman with the 1,000-mile stare. People of the Gulf region have been through a lot, and we're pretty good at bouncing back, but we can all use some help from time to time. If you're experiencing increased anxiety, worry, or anger, you should know that the assistance you may need to help you cope is here. For confidential counseling, call 800-985-5990. 800-985-5990. or text TALK WITH US to 66746. With help, you won't need a TV to see a smiling face, only a mirror. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council. Message and data rates may apply.
I've had trouble with Angel trying to finish high school. He's always struggled through even elementary. It would be frustrating because sometimes I would talk to him and he wouldn't even turn around and look at me. I would ask him, so you're going to school today, right? He would say, yeah. And then later during the day, I would get a phone call saying he wasn't in class. He dropped off for a whole month. There's a time that I just gave up. I just decided, you know what, I don't know what to do with you. I mean, I pretty much have done everything to try to get you back to school. You know, you feel that maybe you're not a good parent, or maybe we don't know how to fix the problem. I really didn't have many people to look to but myself. Now I think that it's gotten a lot better. Now I at least have hope that he'll finish high school. I can't give up. He's still my son. You know, I can't give up.
Give your teen the boost they need to graduate. Call 1-877-4A-KID or join us at boostup.org for tips and advice. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
We reported earlier this week on the rise in homeschooling across the nation. The Washington Post looked at 32 states and the District of Columbia. And between 2017 and 2023, homeschooling went up more than 50% in almost half of the states with available data. D.C., New York, Rhode Island, and South Dakota all had increases above 90%. The Post also compared homeschooling to public and private schooling for 18 of the states. Homeschool enrollment has far outpaced them both, and public school enrollment has actually declined. Here to tell us what's behind these changes is Peter Jamison. He's a staff writer for the Washington Post and was one of the reporters who analyzed this data. Thank you so much for being with us. So why are more parents homeschooling?
Well, in addition to the data analysis that you just referred to, one thing we did to try to fill some of the quantitative vacuum that's existed since the beginning of the pandemic, when this really huge increase in homeschooling began, is we actually conducted a poll in September of homeschooling families, and that was very revealing as well. So, you know, to understand why families are homeschooling now, it helps a little bit to understand why they homeschooled in the past. You know, traditionally, homeschooling emerged in the 1970s, essentially out of anti-authoritarian leftist roots. You know, people who took up ideas such as the philosophy of unschooling, which was sort of the liberation of children from any formal structure of education. That then was gradually taken over by conservative Christian families who wanted to opt out of the public education system for various reasons having to do with their beliefs. And up through the pandemic, you know, a desire to impart religious instruction to one's children was the dominant, or one of the dominant reasons for homeschooling. What we found in our poll is that that's actually changed quite a bit. So as of 2012, about 2/3 of families said they homeschooled to provide religious instruction. In our poll that we published in September, that was down to 1/3 of families. And we've additionally found that the families who are homeschooling have become much more racially diverse. In 2019, about 3/4 of families who homeschooled were white, according to federal estimates. In our poll, that appears to be down to less than half at this point.
So that's CBS News reporting why homeschooling is on the rise nationally. Now, it's just unrefutable. The facts are speaking. The liberal and conservative news pundits are having to admit homeschooling is on the rise, and it's not going back anytime soon. That is why I believe Donald Trump has seized on this opportunity. Here's what he promised.
It was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child.
So how about that? So if Donald Trump gets president, he's promising $10,000 per child tax cut, and you can put it in those 529 savings accounts. Now those accounts have to be used only for education purposes. But as I said before, you know, the average public school across the nation is $16,446 per pupil annually. And this is according to the National Education Association, and this was in 2023. And they said it cost the taxpayers $51 billion. But they're going on to say taxpayers spend nothing on the vast majority of homeschool students, while homeschool families spend an average of $600 per student. Now, I ask you, Mom and Dad, I don't know, you may spend more, but if the average is $600 per student, and then you get a $10,000 tax break per student, hello, $9,400, shabam bam to the good. What you could do is a whole lot more for your child. You might be able to buy them more education. Maybe upgrade their computer. Go back and maybe purchase actually a real old-fashioned encyclopedia set. Put them on better field trips. But the other thing, you can invest in tutors. There's things that you could do. Put your child in some trade courses. Allow them to develop a trade. Or maybe allow them to, if they excel in mathematics or something, let them get tutors. So it opens up a whole world of opportunity, good for the child. Now, the teacher unions are going to scream to high heavens because it's going to dent their pocketbooks. I think the first thing I would do if I was president, I'd do away with the school unions. I think they're nothing but a lethargic, lazy boil on the hiney of every American. They do nothing but they're leeches, and they need to go. They don't benefit the children. They really don't benefit the teachers. I ask you this, teachers. If the teachers' unions are so good, how comes public educators are still one of the lowest paid professions in the country? Go look up how much your union people are making. Go look at the residents of what they live, what they drive. Is it anywhere comparable to what you, the average public educator, live in and drive? I would say a big no. They're using you. Please check out, do your own research. So as you start looking at this, the homeschooling, it is it's a wonderful thing. Here's a child that is on with Brett Cooper, and this is Prager University, and she explains her journey of being homeschooled, wanting to try public school, thinking it was cool, and then regretting that decision, and she actually wanted to graduate as a homeschooler.
School from from kindergarten to third grade, and was pulled out. And then I went to public school again in my 9th grade year because I felt like I might be missing something. I think I bought into the idea of the American stereotypical high school that's portrayed in movies and television. And I thought maybe that's something that I should experience or want to. I absolutely despised it. I felt like I was held back that year, and my academics suffered. Mental health suffered. I really did not enjoy it. And so I finished up the rest of my high school career homeschooling.
You know why you didn't enjoy it? Because you're healthy. Let me answer the question. So this is very important. You suffered academically. There is no question that kids in the vast majority of homeschool kids learn more than kids in a regular high school. You feel that that's correct?
Absolutely. And I did, on paper, I did well. I ended up first in my class out of about 1,200 students that year.
And that's without doing any work.
Exactly. But I had no joy of learning, which I had had for my entire academic career up until that point. I felt like I was sitting in a room for 8 hours while I was being talked at, and I didn't retain as much information as I had in previous years. I felt like what I was being taught, the curricula, was missing something. I had already, been supplementing other kinds of pieces of education from my family. I was doing online classes while still in public school to try to supplement it because my...
So you had learned more in every subject as a homeschool child?
Absolutely.
That's fascinating. So you stayed in a regular high school for 1 year?
1 year.
And then asked to return?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Your homeschool, I don't even know if the word class is correct. How many did you meet with on a daily basis?
None. It was
just you and your parents?
It was just, so from 3rd grade to about... or 8th grade, it was my mom creating the curriculum. She did a classical type education.
And just with you?
Just with me.
So how did you meet friends?
I played tons of sports. I was a gymnast. I did ballet for 14 years. I did musical theater. I would take art classes. I
Where
volunteered.
would you do that if you weren't in a regular school?
Community centers. Honestly, a lot of homeschoolers, you can be part of, like...
Did you have close friends?
Very close friends.
When my parents went to public schools in the United States, they learned a lot, including to treasure the United States of America and liberty. And they learned a lot of math and science and music and art and grammar and literature.
And this is PragerU. If you want to go, it's Brett Cooper, homeschool versus public school. And you heard the young girl's testimony very clearly. See, the misnomer of homeschooling is, you're creating freakazoids. And I've been to some homeschool conferences because when we homeschooled, there are your isolationists, okay? They are people that live in their own little bubble. They don't want anyone near it. That's fine. But people made fun of the Amish for years. But look at the Amish. They live longer, good, better diet. Their kids are much less to be in violent or any incarceration. Their family units stay stronger. And their kids tend to, of course, they stay in the farming or the agricultural possibility there. But their kids tend to have happier marriages. The divorce rate is very low. And those are things that would mean a lot to me. So what's happened in the past? They used to make fun of people that didn't go with the norm. Homeschooling was made fun of. Now it's become a trend. The only danger of that is they might then try to say, let's make it cool. Let's get some Taylor Swifties in there and ruin the whole thing. Taylor, stay away from homeschoolers, okay? Go take your craziness elsewhere, okay? You've already ruined NFL. So don't get near the homeschoolers, I pray. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Homeschooling helps prevent some things. One is the DEI mantra. This is the drum that the public school is beating today. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Before that, it was... the critical theories, the critical race theory and all that. That what they've been doing for the past couple of decades is slowly massaging parents out of the education system, letting the teachers have their say over their kids. And like I said before, earlier in the show, they quit sending homework home about 10 years ago. If you ask parents today, prior to COVID, kids were not bringing homework home, because they didn't want their parents knowing what they were telling kids if they don't have homework, therefore their books would stay in their lockers and very few kids would take it home and show their parents. Savvy? Keeping parents ignorant. And the PTA or PTOs have been dwindling. So what's happening is, I think COVID, one silver lining is it woke parents up. They started saying, hey, what are you teaching my child? And then some parents said, since I've got to teach them anyway, and we worked around the schedules, I think we could do this on a regular basis. And homeschooling accelerated greatly thanks to Dr. Ouchie the Fauci. So that's one thing we can thank old Fauci and Scarf Lady and Pence and all the others that pushed that on us. So because if you go and read Dr. Burke, remember the Scarf Lady, She said in her own book that they lied to Trump. Remember Flatten the Curve? She said, we lied to him. This is in her book. These are her words, not mine. We lied about flattening the curve for 2 weeks. Remember, everyone stay home just for 2 weeks. Remember that? That was so that, she said, then we knew if we got the country shut down for 2 weeks, the media would help us put such a strong narrative that Trump would feel needed to keep the country shut down for 2 years. She said, and that was our plan. Why would they want the country shut down for 2 years? One, to wreck the economy he had built, right? And two, to rein in the voter ballots. Let's not be stupid. And that's why I think you saw the election swayed like it was in 2020. That's just me. But what they didn't, even though they had some devious plans, God always has a way of shining through. And I think the beaming light from that is, hey, parents started paying attention, saying, wait, you're teaching what to my child? This is PragerU talking about the DEI disaster that's right now in many public schools today, and probably your workplace.
20 or 50 or even 100 years ago, if you asked someone which of the world's countries was the most diverse, most equitable, and most inclusive, they would have almost certainly answered the United States. Not anymore. What changed? Well, nothing and everything. Nothing in the sense that America is still the opportunity-rich place it's always been. And everything because the progressive left has hijacked those three words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and turned them into weapons of mass destruction. This DEI trio makes up the neutron bomb that has laid waste to a good part of our educational and corporate institutions. Given the damage that has been done, it might be a good idea to see what these words used to mean and what they mean now. Diversity used to mean that people of different backgrounds were free to join a group or association. Equity used to mean enforcing equal standards for all individuals and groups. Inclusion used to mean allowing people of every background and identity to participate in a group or association. Now, in their DEI context, these words all mean one thing: applying unequal standards to ensure preferential outcomes for individuals and groups based on race, sex, and gender identity. The DEI movement is not about a sincere desire to make educational or corporate institutions more diverse, more equitable, or more inclusive. If you don't believe me, try having an open discussion on your company message board or at your next DEI seminar about why the same standards should apply to everyone, everywhere, regardless of race, sex, or gender identity. Try that and you know what will happen. You'll be shouted down, shunned, reprimanded, and maybe fired. DEI is ultimately about only one thing: advancing those who are not white, heterosexual, and male at the expense of white, heterosexual men, regardless of their respective qualifications. If you say, well, that's fine, because white, heterosexual men had too many advantages for too long, then I would ask, what about all the women, gays, blacks, and Latinos who were born to privilege? Should they be recipients of DEI special preferences? And when do we know we've reached a DEI endpoint? When do we know that everything is finally diverse, equitable, and inclusive? There are no good answers to any of these questions. That's a feature, not a bug, of the DEI racket.
I think I have to agree. And this is the DEI disaster. It's PragerU if you want to go watch that and others. But it is a racket. Even Mayor Adams, a Democrat, said this.
There's a movement to radicalize young people, and I'm not going to wait until it's done.
There's a movement to radicalize young people. And I've played this before on the show, but he talks about what's going on with these Palestinian protests. It's nothing more than brainwashing. And here again is Mayor Adams, a Democrat at one of the largest cities, and because he spoke out against the narrative, he has now been the recipient of FBI raids and FBI investigations, and the we're going to shame you and blame you. Here again, Democrat Mayor Adams.
Disrupt our city, and she was able, through her team, was able to conduct an investigation And what I feared was actually materialized and actualized by those who are on the ground. And I know that there are those who are attempting to say, well, the majority of people may have been students. You don't have to be the majority to influence and co-op an operation. That is what this is about. And so if we want to play the word police, you could do so. I want to play the New York City police, where we're going to protect our city from those who are attempting to do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people.
Now, if this was about 5 months ago, since he's done this and he stood against some of his own party, they have run off his police chief, the lady he mentioned that stood strong against Black Lives Matter and other inclusive programs, and 4 other staff members. His replacement police chief has under new scrutiny. They're going after this guy. And why? Because he's telling some truth on this one issue of them radicalizing young people. Listen to what he said about the young people. This is why people homeschool.
What is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people. Do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people. Do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people.
That's a Democrat. I'm not saying I would vote for him, but I appreciate the heck out of this guy. And you got to ask yourself, why are so many Democrats feeling the need to break from their party and speak some truth? Tulsi Gabbard, Mayor Adams, Kennedy. Now Elon Musk has come over. Donald Trump, a former Democrat like Reagan, running for president. I think there's things they're trying to tell us. So we will see how it all ends, because we're 21 days from the actual election day. But I believe homeschooling is a big part of what's going to be going on. This, again, is Tim Hawkins and the Homeschool Family Funny Song.
Some people say we're goofy, mysterious and spooky. Our neighbors think we're kooky, a homeschool family. We drive a white conversion, we learn about the Persians. Our 6-year-old's a surgeon, a homeschool family. We learn about creation and classic education. We're sponsoring a Haitian, a homeschool family.
Meek. Unique. Geek.
The parents are the tutors, we build our own computers. We never go to Hooters, a homeschool family. Have recess in the foyer, and then we read Tom Sawyer. Our 9-year-old's a lawyer, a homeschool family. We never leave our dwelling, our children are excelling. They're champions at spelling, a homeschool family.
That's Tim Hawkins. You ought to check out Tim Hawkins. He's got some funny songs. A lot of good stuff there, Tim. I'm a big fan. For my birthday this last November, it's almost a year ago, we went to the Tim Hawkins concert here in Chattanooga, and it was, if you're looking for clean fun, find a Tim Hawkins concert near you, and I guarantee you'll enjoy it. I'm going to have Tammy Dana on soon. She's from Georgia, and we'll talk some Georgia politics, what's going on in Georgia. We've got other things happening. There we go. We've got a mission project that's coming up, and I've told some of you about this. We're going to, we've adopted a fella in East Tennessee at Hampton, North Carolina. If you know anything about North Carolina and Tennessee, where we connect, up there at Banner Elk, North Carolina, at the top on 19E, if you go up 19E, you come down and you'll go through, it's Elk Park, Banner Elk in North Carolina. Then you come down and you'll go through Cloudland, but then you come to Hampton, which was badly flooded. Cloudland didn't really get much because it didn't have a creek bed to overflow, but Hampton got flooded bad. And then at the bottom is Elizabeth in Tennessee that got partial flooding damage. And so I went on a 5-city tour up there. I went also to the other side, Irwin, where 26 goes up to Asheville, North Carolina. 26 is still shut down. The hospital, many of you probably saw the Apache helicopters that went and rescued 60-some people off the top of a hospital. That was Irwin, Tennessee. I pastored at First Baptist Irwin. I know these places. My parents live up in the Tri-Cities. So my point being, I've got family. This is near dear to me. So if you want to help us, we're going to be taking supplies. I've got a load of cleaning supplies we'll be taking up soon. We've got a house we're refinishing. We're trying to get this guy in before winter. And we're also collecting blankets. If you can imagine, when the floodwaters went through these homes, they lost their memorabilia, they lost their furniture, and some of them have been without power. Some are still without power right now. I went up and interviewed one lady who is a school teacher and had not seen her students in over 3 weeks because the roads were so bad in North Carolina, she could not get over to that part, so she had to come down Tennessee, if you will, to get supplies. People are living in their cars because their houses are totally destroyed, and they're trying to see what they can do to salvage anything. It's only, if it were you, and you imagine, and daylight's their friend. They have to work in the daylight because as soon as the sun goes down, they have no power. They don't have the ability to turn on lights. So they have to work sun up to sun down, and then at night you have to deal with looters. There's a lot of things. You don't have electricity for heat. As I said, a lot of folks are sleeping in their vehicles, or they're found friends and family to stay with. It's not an easy thing. And so if you would pray about helping us, you can give online at www.appisonbaptist.com. That's APISON, appisonbaptist.com. We're going to go take supplies. We're going to make several trips. I've already made one. And then a young family of mine, the Jacobs, new members of our church, they took a trip. They took 50 of our resource bags. And what I'm real proud of Ben, by the way, yesterday was his birthday. Ben listened to my interview with one of the folks and said, hey, they needed totes. So he went into action, and he went around to certain retailers here in the area, and he got 100 totes, or right around there, donated, plus a gift card for supplies. So he and his family did a mission trip, and I want to encourage your family. Now, they went up for a day. They left early in the morning. It's a 3.5-hour trip. They went and ministered and helped, and then they drove back, all in one day. Somebody say, that's crazy. Well, you go to Dollywood, Six Flags Over Georgia. Why not go help some families? The Jacobs did that. Then one of our worship leaders, John Wood, and his family went up and with chainsaws and helped clear out a lot of stuff. So a lot of good stuff happening. I just encourage you, do something. Everyone can do something. This is Macil Duncan. I'll be back after the break.
I just wanted to share that I love the radio show that Macil does. He just tells it like it is, which is so refreshing for a media outlet. He has an easygoing and uplifting personality, and he just makes you feel like you're a friend sitting in their living room talking. He does not fall for the gaslighting of today, and he shares the truth of the matter. I love his sense of humor, and his sound effects are great, like when he whistles, cracks me up. He has so much wisdom, and his variety of guests is just awesome. I learn a lot from his show. He does his research, obviously. So I just really wanted to say thank you, Chattanooga Radio. I just love this show. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
WVMG Chattanooga.
I'm Mickey Hart of the Grateful Dead, and we've traveled all over the world, from Amsterdam to the Great Pyramids of Egypt. But I can't think of anywhere more full of beauty, life, and music than our own national forests. I love the forest, but you know, all its beauty can be taken away from us through one careless act. A campfire unattended, a cigarette butt thrown out a car window, or a trash fire left alone. You see, one little fire can quickly become one big fire, a forest fire. And before you know it, the trees stop swaying, the flowers stop blooming, and the birds stop singing. So please, be careful in the forest. It belongs to all of us, and remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
A public service of this station, the Forest Service, USDA, your state foresters, the Ad Council,
and the Grateful Dead.
This is the sound of a brand new outdoor grill being hurled off a 20-story building. Now a stylish glass coffee table. An electric guitar. These are the things you could enjoy, all cast into oblivion. Because when you throw away money on wasted electricity, you throw away everything you could have bought with it. Visit EnergySavers.gov and get tips on how to save energy and money. Then do things like switch to Energy Star light bulbs or Energy Star appliances, and you could save hundreds of dollars a year. So this doesn't happen to the recliner you've had your eye on, or this to the treadmill on your wish list, or this to the shiny new bike your kid's been asking for. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ad Council.
Want to fight childhood asthma? Then fight it with a scrub brush and a hot soapy towel. Even in the neatest and tidiest homes, if there's so much as a crumb to eat or a drop to drink, household pests like bugs and mice will do all that they can to get it. Creepy crawlies like bugs and mice are unpleasant enough as it is, but they're more than just a nuisance for kids with asthma because they can actually trigger an asthma attack. So give them a whole lot of nothing. Sweep up crumbs, wipe down tables, scrub dishes before they pile up in the sink, and store leftovers in plastic bags or bowls. Don't leave them so much as one tidbit or nibble, and you can stop a childhood asthma attack before it starts. Discover other simple ways to prevent an asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS or visit noattacks.org, because no child should feel like a fish out of water. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
Welcome back to the show, my friends. This is Macil Duncan, and this is the Macil Duncan Show, broadcast live from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we are going to be having a couple more news things for you. But my topic today has been on homeschooling. If you're just joining us, taxpayers spend an average of $16,446 per pupil in America. Now, that's interesting. I did not realize it was that much. But the National Education Association that put this out also said, because of the surge in homeschooling, we have savings now of over $51 billion for taxpayers. $51 billion for taxpayers. That's amazing. So taxpayers are spending nothing on a vast majority of homeschool students. Now, the family is averaging right at $600. So if you can imagine this, you spend $600 on the average per parent if you do homeschool. Listen to this. If you are a homeschool parent or considering homeschooling, Donald Trump is making a $10,000 pledge to you.
President, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, in my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child, completely tax-free to spend on costs associated with homeschool education. I will also work to ensure that every homeschool family is entitled to full access to the benefits available to non-homeschool students, including participating in athletic programs, clubs, after-school activities, educational trips, and more.
Now, how about this? You're a homeschool parent, or you're considering. Say you got 3 kids, $10,000 per child. Mama might can stay home. This could have a huge impact on the family. Think about that. So with that said, homeschooling is something I think a lot of people have misnomers about. They don't understand what homeschooling can be. But here is a story I shared earlier about a principal who decided to stay home because she said, I think I'd rather homeschool than put my kid through, then this is the principal of a private school even. Check this out. This is Fox News.
A former school principal sounded the alarm on the state of education in America, saying the system suffers deep-rooted issues. Last year, educator and mom of 3, Mandy Davis, decided to quit her job as a school principal and focus on homeschooling her children instead, saying she was concerned over bias in the classroom and a mass exodus of qualified teachers.
Bias in the classroom and a mass exodus of public school teachers. So a principal noticed bias and an exit. Let's listen to some more. She's got some good stuff here.
In recent years, some 300,000 public school teachers have left their profession.
300,000 public school teachers have left Vamoosed
profession, excuse me. Former principal Mandy Davis joins us now. Mandy, thank you for being here. You're a principal at a private school. You know, it took some time to get to that level, and yet you decided to focus on your home and homeschooling there. What's happening in education that had you make that change?
Sure. I think there's so much happening today that just especially us as parents need to be aware of. I talk a lot about the current teacher shortages because it affects so much. It's causing larger class sizes with the rise of discipline and behavioral issues in the classroom and a shortage of teachers. That's not the type of balance we want to see. Last year, opening and in September, having somewhere around 44% of teacher vacancies in schools on staff is just unheard of numbers, and that number is only expected to go up. And you know what's concerning as a parent is wondering who's going to come into those roles, and we're already seeing dozens of states moving towards changing certifications and licensure required to try to grow this pool of teachers. And I'm not sure that's the best environment we want our children in.
Bingo. I'm not sure that's the best environment we want our children in. So 300,000 teachers have left. Here's a principal that said, I just don't agree with the situation, so I'm going to homeschool my child. I don't want my child, even though I'm the principal, I don't want my child in that situation. That says a whole heck of a lot of the public school system. So I don't know what you think, but I think there's a problem. I think it's going to continue to grow, and I think a lot of people are saying, hey, there's a problem that we all should maybe take note of. And here's a guy that talked about, let me see if I can cue it up just right, about the school system, and let me see if I found it right.
Ready for some accusations, because clearly
The only reason you don't like it is because you don't want the public to have food, or you don't care about our hardworking government grocery store employees. Now, if that sounds ridiculous, let's consider what we did with public education.
Now, what he talked about was, what if they put a zip code and made you go to only grocery stores in your own zip code? You weren't allowed to go across town to buy bread, milk, or compare prices. He goes, that's what we've done with education. We're forcing parents in a zip code situation.
The government opened up thousands of government schools, and you're assigned one based off of your address to which your child is required to attend by law. You have little to no say over the classes or curriculum offered, and any changes you might want to see will include a long and expensive political battle. Your teachers are not compensated by how well they educate your child, but almost exclusively by their seniority. And if you think that is a bad system, then you're told that, you guessed it, you hate public education and you despise our teachers.
So this guy brought up some good points, just using the public school, if you will. Now, Vivek Ramaswamy, if you guys remember, back during the presidential campaign, he's rather flamboyant, but this is what he said about the school system and the Department of Education.
Look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country.
Cut off the head of the snake, and give it to the hands of the parents. I got to tell you, Vivek, that was powerful, very powerful. I think a lot of folks can get along with that. And as I told you before, the mayor of New York said there's a global problem. They're trying to get to our kids, and I'll play that clip in a second. But I just want to remind you that the homeschooling is a growing thing. If you go back, I've been sharing, the Washington Post says, homeschooling rise from fringe to fastest growing form of education. He says, district by district, look at the school explosion of homeschool growth, which is a post-analysis, and you watch the public and private schools decline. This is the Washington Post. This is not your conservative news now. So even when the liberals say it, they're admitting failure. Now, the Daily Caller says this is a lot of kids. Homeschooling is on a rise nationwide. And he talks about homeschooling is on the rise in every state. And I think this is pretty powerful. And this was starting back in 2017 to 2018. But the number of homeschool students increased by 51% in states with comparable enrollment statistics. That is powerful. That's the Daily Caller. So homeschooling has risen 51% across the states. Now, there's another one here. This is the homeschooling statistics. It's called Brightly, but it says there are right now in their with their surveying, parents there's more than 3.7 million children in the United States that are currently being homeschooled. That's a lot of kids, 3.7 million. So as you do that and you start looking at things, I want to say, hey, which is the easiest state to homeschool in? And I'll share the top 10 easiest and the top 8 hardest. And they may shockaroo you, because I was shocked. Because as you start thinking about homeschooling, there's a lot of folks that say, wow, so there's some states that are making it very hard. Some have either not so much that they making it easier, they just don't try to hinder parental choice. But I'll remind you of the statistic. This is by the National Education Association. Okay, taxpayers are spending an average of $16,446 per pupil annually in public schools. Okay, and so it saved the government $51 billion in 2021 and 2022. That's a lot of money, and that's a lot of savings. So I think that's very interesting as we kind of wrap up the homeschool talk for today. But I also want to share with you this. These are the parents consider homeschooling to build their Christian values. This was in USA Today. And they said back in this is an article 2017, but the National Education Association, the NEA, has become the booger man to a lot of parents that see that they have nothing but an agenda. if you go back and look at Common Core and No Child Left Behind, it is obvious that the government wanted to put all the kids under one umbrella so they could formulate the education system based on their values and their views, not we, the citizens. And they have consistently chipped away at the American family, American heritage, our real history, and what we should be all about. Look at Columbus Day. The guy that discovered America is now being portrayed in a very bad way, and they're wanting to change the day to Indigenous Day. Fine, have another day, but why take away Columbus Day? Because it's a deep-rooted attempt through their DEI programming to make you feel that white people are bad, people of color are good, and the white people need to be extinct, destroyed, and etc. There's a big blame, shame game going on, especially through the completely woke left propagandist. And a lot of it's working. Look what they're calling now the Christians that are patriotic. They're calling us white nationalists. Okay, I'm white, and I'm a nationalist. I have no problem with that. But they try to say it in a tone and with some spooky music in the background to where you're supposed to say, ooh, I don't know if I want to be identified as a white nationalist. Well, what does Make America Great stand for? Nationalism. You get in the picture? They inadvertently are trying to shame anyone, again, that associates with Donald Trump. And it's a shame that they go to these great lengths and cannot just stick with the issues. But that's not what the left does. They don't play fair, and they don't play with any amount of conscience. I think they're very, very evil-minded. Now, I'm going to start with the hardest states. These are the hardest states to homeschool in. Check this out. Number 1 is Ohio. I don't know about that shocked me. Number 1, the hardest state in the nation of America to homeschool, number 1 is Ohio, right in the heart of the country. Jim Jordan, I don't know if you know that, or J.D. Vance, but yeah. Number 2 is North Dakota. Number 3 is Vermont. Number 4, New York State. Now, that's not a shockaroo, but I just assume that would be in the top 1 or 2. Number 5, Rhode Island. Number 6, Massachusetts. So these first 6 were unique. You have Ohio number 1, which I was shocked at. North Dakota number 2, I was kind of shocked at. But then Vermont, New York, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Okay, but guess what number 7 is? The 7th hardest state to homeschool in America explains this problem we're having right now with the country with the election. Georgia. Georgia is the 7th hardest state to homeschool in. And then number 8 is Pennsylvania. 2 of the states that possibly could decide this education. You can't tell me this wasn't a part of long-term strategy by the left. They have had theirs, because Georgia used to be very red. Very red. Back, Newt Gingrich's contract with America back in the 80s, there was no way I ever would have thought Georgia would ever turn blue. But it has. All right? So you've got Georgia, and then you've got Pennsylvania that it vacillates. Pennsylvania, they've got Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, a lot of rich history in Pennsylvania. But right now, Georgia and Pennsylvania could possibly decide this next presidential election. And both of them, through strategies of the left, are the hardest to homeschool because they want to own the minds of the children so that in generations to come, they'll buy into think about this, the white shaming. You have open borders. Most of the people coming across the open borders are folks of color, correct? People from they're people of color, variety. Okay, now if you've been brainwashing the children that are Caucasian to say, hey, you need to be ashamed, you need to bow down, you should completely forget your heritage. It's a nightmare in the making to where America could lose without firing a single shot its sovereignty and just become nothing but a nation of who has the most muscle, who has the biggest gang, who has the most bullets. They're inviting a lot of unrest into this country. Here are the 10 schools, it may shock you, who make homeschooling the easiest. Number 1, Idaho. Number 2, Indiana. Those 2 don't shock me. Number 3 is Utah. Number 4, Arkansas. By the way, Arkansas is the only state in the union that, if need to, could feed its own population in the state. They have enough resources. They're the other 49, if it came down to it, they do not have the farming or the ability to feed their own people. Interesting. Okay, so you got Idaho, Indiana, Utah, Arkansas. Alaska's number 5. Arizona, is that a shock? Is number 6. Arizona is the 6th friendliest homeschool state, and it's right there at the border. Wyoming, 7. Nevada is, again, another swing state. And homeschooling, they're there at the top. Texas and then Mississippi. So here's the top 10. You got Idaho, 1, Indiana, Utah, Arkansas, Alaska, Arizona, Wyoming, Nevada, Texas, and Mississippi. Are you shocked that Alabama and Tennessee are not in the friendliest homeschool states? I was. As just much as I was shocked that Georgia was in the top 8 hardest states. So what's happening? Your southern Bible Belt, if you will, is being eroded. The fallacies that somehow the South will rise again on conservative values, they may have done enough damage to the children and the psyche of the family to where the South, as you have known it for years, may not be the same South of the future. Interesting stuff, my friends. Interesting stuff. But homeschooling, again, is something I think everyone should pray about. I think it's something worth considering. And Donald Trump has promised you, if elected, he's going to give you $10,000 per child tax credit.
President, it was my honor to support America's homeschool families and to protect the God-given right of every parent to be the steward of their children's education. Since the China virus, America has seen an estimated 30% increase in homeschool enrollment. When I'm reelected, I will do everything I can to support parents who make the courageous choice of homeschool. Under the Trump tax cuts, we allowed families to use 529 education savings accounts to spend up to $10,000 a year tax-free on tuition for grades K through 12. This was a tremendous win for school choice, very important, school choice, remember that term. And yet that benefit did not apply to homeschoolers. So to support the growing homeschool movement, to support the growing homeschool movement, to support the growing homeschool movement, to support the growing homeschool movement.
By the way, he did this September 14th, 2023. Why the sudden interest in homeschooling? Because it's a growing demographic.
In my next term, I will immediately fight to allow homeschool parents the same incredible benefit, $10,000 a year per child.
$10,000, just like they did for private. This is that could be a game changer, and this could be the open border, if you will, to free the minds of the children. Because if homeschooling can be done by parents of faith and people that love this country, 10, 15 years from now, you just might have some kids that know the Pledge of Allegiance still, understand what our founding fathers stood for, and understand who the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are all about and who they're written for. Interesting stuff, my friends. Interesting stuff. But, everyone's to each his own. I'm a big fan of homeschooling, and I hope you guys can understand that there's a lot of good-minded people out there. This DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, stuff like that has been just pushed upon our kids. And if you don't believe me, do you believe Mayor Adams, who said this is nothing but global brainwashing? This is a Democratic mayor in New York City.
Actualized by those who are on the ground. And I know that there are those who are attempting to say, well, the majority of people may have been students. You don't have to be the majority to influence and co-op an operation. That is what this is about. And so if we want to play the word police, you could do so. I want to play the New York City police, where we're going to protect our city from those who are attempting to do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people. Those who are attempting to do what is happening globally. Those who are attempting to do what is happening globally. who are attempting to do what is happening globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people globally. There is a movement to radicalize young people. And I'm not going to wait until it's done.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, because he's so tall against the narrative, he's facing FBI investigation and slander. But it takes a strong man to be able to stand up and say, listen, I'm not going to go with the norm. And that's what he's done. And he's paying a price for it. So you might want to keep Mr. Adams in your prayer. Not saying that I think he's the best thing in all the world. But I am just saying that I appreciate what he did. To take that stand, that was not an easy thing to do. It was not an easy thing to do. And so, well, getting into some other news thing, did you know that mystery drones flew over the U.S. military bases for 17 days? Okay? Now, you remember the China balloon that flew across America and we didn't shoot it down? Under Biden now, for 17 freaking days, we've had mystery drones surveilling our military bases.
Questions now about the nation's national security and who exactly has their eyes on our skies. New reports that mysterious drones are swarming a U.S. military base and did so for 17 days in December of last year. Wow. New reports of something that happened in December that breached our national security? The Pentagon says it's stumped with no idea who is behind it. The incident recalls the Chinese spy balloon. Remember, I said this is kind of reminiscent of that. Remember, it floated all across the country last year? It hovered over some top secret sites for days before the military finally shot it down. Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is at the Pentagon. Jennifer, I'm worried about the fact that they didn't know. I mean, I can accept they don't tell us, but they didn't know?
Well, they knew, but they didn't know who was behind it. This was an incredible, well-reported scoop, Harris, from our colleagues at the Wall Street Journal and confirmed to us by Pentagon officials early this morning. In December 2023, U.S. Air Force commanders at Langley Air Force Base in Southern Virginia, home to the F-22 Raptors, noticed over a period of 17 days dozens of unidentified drones would begin flying over the base shortly after dusk each night. The Air Force, by federal law, was not allowed to shoot these mystery drones out of the sky.
Say what? Federal law, they can't shoot down what could be enemy targets? Let's listen to this again. Is this propaganda or is this for real?
Would begin flying over the base shortly after dusk each night. The Air Force, by federal law, would the Air Force dusk each night. The Air Force night. The Air Force, by federal law, was the Air Force, by federal law, was the Air Force, by federal law, was not. The Air Force, by federal law, was not allowed to shoot these mystery drones out of the sky. The White House reportedly called.
I got a problem with this. When you have someone running for office and they come, I know you can't put drones, and they're told they'll be destroyed if you fly a drone, say, over a Trump or Biden rally. But you can fly one over a military base for 17 days, and the Air Force says, "Oh, it's against the law." Yeah, we gotta let you gotta let old Kim Jong and all them guys, chow chicka pow pow, take pictures of our military bases. That's very upsetting.
Called for national security meetings to discuss how to address drones possibly sent by a foreign adversary. There were
possibly. For 17 days, who's going to be flying a drone over the military base? I mean, I don't think it's like, someone's just got a hobby for 17 days straight. Yeah, some kid may stray one over a military base accidentally, but for 17 days straight? We've got a problem with this, my friends. We'll be back after the break.
Former President Donald Trump unveiled a new plan to increase the number of U.S. Border Patrol agents. He made the announcement Sunday at a campaign stop in Arizona, saying that if he's elected, he would hire 10,000 new agents and boost their salaries by 10%. He also would offer a $10,000 retention and signing bonus to keep the agents currently on the job and bring in new agents.
If Kamala gets 4 more years, the entire country will be turned into a migrant camp, and that's what's happening. When I win on November 5th, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins.
Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign denounced Trump's plan, saying he has a track record of broken promises and failed leadership on the issue. Harris said she would sign a bipartisan bill that would impose tougher immigration and asylum laws if she were elected president. The bill failed to pass Congress earlier this year. Harris made a trip to the border in September, backing tighter border restrictions. The Biden-Harris administration has recently seen new lows for migrant crossings into the U.S. following new restrictions on asylum access. The Border Patrol had around 56,000 crossings in July, 58,000 in August, and 45,000 in September, which is down from 250,000 at the end of 2023. There are around 19,000 agents employed by the U.S. Border Patrol. The Biden-Harris administration did lose over 4,200 agents between October of 2020 and April 2024 due to people who either quit or retired. For Straight Arrow News, I'm Kara Rucker. To stay up to date on the 2024 presidential election, new details are emerging about the scale of China's global espionage operations, with intelligence agencies warning that Beijing is spying on a level that they may not be able to keep up with. Western intelligence agencies are sounding the alarm over what they describe as an overwhelming and highly organized Chinese espionage campaign. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. Officials say China's intelligence gathering efforts involve hundreds of thousands of individuals, including cyber experts, private companies, and even civilians mobilized to spy on rival nations. In the U.S. alone, the FBI has reported multiple high-profile cases of Chinese-linked cyber attacks. In just 1 month, a Chinese firm hacked over 250,000 internet-connected devices across the U.S. and Europe. And last year, a Chinese hacking group allegedly accessed the systems used by U.S. law enforcement for wiretapping, raising major national security concerns. The FBI estimates China's hacking personnel currently outnumber their cyber division staff by 50 to 1. And European agencies believe China's intelligence workforce may include up to 600,000 people. Western governments are also uncovering physical espionage activities. In addition to several other hacking suspects, U.S. prosecutors recently charged 2 Chinese nationals with obstruction in a case against Huawei for leaking confidential information to China. And in the UK, Chinese hackers gained access to voter registration records, compromising the personal information of 40 million people.
More than 31 million users' data has been exposed in a cyber attack on the Internet Archive, a cornerstone of digital history preservation. The platform, responsible for archiving billions of web pages, suffered a breach that has many alarmed. The Internet Archive is widely regarded as the digital memory of the Internet. It's home to archived web pages, books, music, and other forms of media, thanks to its renowned Wayback Machine. The nonprofit organization allows users to browse nearly 1 trillion archived websites, capturing snapshots of history that would otherwise disappear from the internet forever. But this week, the archive was victim to a catastrophic breach. The attack started with a distributed denial of service, or DDoS attack, which overwhelms a website by flooding it with traffic until it crashes. This rendered the archive inaccessible for hours at a time. More concerning was the theft of user data, including passwords. While these passwords were encrypted, weak passwords can still be cracked, leaving users vulnerable. The group claiming responsibility, an account on X known as SM Black Meta, cited political motives tied to U.S. support for Israel, making the attack more than just a security breach, but also part of a broader operation started in May of this year. 22 моего мая мы
начали международную атаку на крупнейший в мире архив, которая длилась много часов. Атака была проведена дважды, и мы взяли на себя полную ответственность за это.
The account also indicated there may be future attacks planned. This comes as a critical time for the Internet Archive. Earlier this year, the platform faced legal challenges from major publishers for its book lending program, bringing the nonprofit's future into question. With a data breach of this magnitude, the archive's ability to host media and protect its users is now in question.
You ever feel that way, friend? All this spying, all this hacking. I think a lot of people are like going, what's going on? We blame the Chinese, we blame Iran, but our own government maybe? I don't know. Could be. Something to consider. But some of us give away so much information willingly through social media. But anyway, a lot of suspicious activity going on in the computer world. I think it's something that we all have to just look back and say, okay, out of my comfort zone, what have you. But Sam's Club is testing all digital stores to have no checkout lines. So some technology is good. See what you think about Sam's and the future of shopping.
Sam's Club is taking a bold move toward a checkout-free shopping experience. The big box retailer is embracing a future without lines, thanks to its Scan and Go app. They're rolling this out with a newly opened store in Dallas. When you enter, you'll be greeted by an all-digital experience. The Walmart-owned membership club features a showroom-like space where customers can scan items on their phones as they browse. No cashier needed. CNBC reports that customers can shop for everything from diamonds to cars and, of course, the store's signature Members Mark products. Inside the store, shoppers will use the app to ring up items as they move through the aisles. And in an area once reserved for cash registers, they'll find display items that were previously only available online. This move gives the store 4 times more space for preparing e-commerce orders for curbside pickup and home delivery. Sam's Club CEO Chris Nicholas says the store is a glimpse into what shopping might look like in the future. He calls the new store a testing ground for emerging technology. But not everyone's sold. Some shoppers say they're a bit wary of the new tech. Sam's Club says staff will be on hand to help customers get comfortable. This new store comes at a critical time for Sam's Club as it works to distinguish itself from its biggest retail rival, Costco. While Costco outpaces Sam's Club in overall sales, Sam's Club is focusing on attracting younger shoppers and leveraging tech to stay competitive. I'm Kara Rucker.
So you can actually go into a store. Of course, you have to have your smartphone, and other people attested this, but you basically, I guess, scan the items. They're in your bag or in your cart, and you're paying as you go. So you're picking up an item, you scan it, you don't have to put it on a conveyor belt, you don't have to bag it. Interesting. Now, the only thing is when Walmart went to pretty much, no cashiers and self-checkout, did you know their shoplifting went up 28%? 28% at Walmart. So you got to wonder how Sam's is going to do this. Now, Sam's does not provide bags. If they keep that up to where everything's in the cart, they provide old boxes, that you can throw stuff in. I'm sure there's going to have to be a way for things to be visible. But technology, it's catching up, my friend. It's catching up. And, as the song says, I feel like everyone's watching me and I have no privacy. I'm going to play the end of it. It's kind of funny. feel like someone's watching you? I do. It's a funny song. Funny song. I don't know if you like the oldies but goodies, but I do. But it's something for us to consider. Technology doesn't always have to be feared. Some of it can be good. My wife reminds me that she went from the horse to the car. People were fighting that, and I know they were. Some technology is because she's more into the the shopping online than I am. I'm just not an online shopper. I'd rather go to a store. I like people. I like going and talking to folks. Say, hey, how you doing? I don't like the thought that everything's going to be delivered to my house or delivered to my car, and it's going to limit to where only talking you do is on social media. And what if your account gets hacked? What if your email gets hacked? What if folks start communicating in a way you don't want to communicate? I just think that's the only thing I see as a problem. Being able to go and have those conversations, I just think it's healthier. I think it's the human way of us, if you will, and it makes us want to say, hey, can we maybe slow this down or maybe look at some other options? I don't know. It's just me. Maybe it's just me, but we'll see. See if there are any other news stories I was going to bring your attention. I think we had one other here. These are a couple I think the ladies are going to like. One here is about Bath and Body Works, ladies. Well, guys, you never know. Guys are getting a little. You may like it too.
What was supposed to be a cozy holiday candle turned into a PR nightmare for Bath & Body Works. The company's snowed-in candle has been pulled from shelves after critics online pointed out that the label design resembled something far more offensive than a winter wonderland. The snowflake design, meant to start off the winter season, looked too much like the white hoods worn by members of the Ku Klux Klan. A spokesperson for Bath & Body Works said the resemblance was unintentional and that the company is committed to listening to its customers and fixing any mistakes. In a statement to the Washington Post, they apologized to anyone offended and assured that the candle was being swiftly removed from its stores. This misstep comes at a crucial time for Bath & Body Works. The holiday season is key for the retailer, as it accounts for more than a third of their annual sales. Employees have reportedly been instructed to remove the candle labels and dispose of them in opaque trash bags. Meanwhile, some customers who bought the candles before they were pulled are reselling them on eBay at prices ranging from $125 to $360. Online, the candle has been given nicknames like Clandle and Klan Christmas Candle. The backlash taps into larger concerns as Klan imagery remains a powerful hate symbol.
So there you go, Bath and Body Works. It's if you can go look at it, I can see maybe where they're stretching that from, but to me it's a stretch. It was obviously not intended to be that. It's just what you want to make of something sometimes. Also, if you guys are into taking the shots for dieting.
Weight loss drugs are becoming more popular. However, not everyone can afford them, and they're not always covered by insurance, especially for those insured by their employers. Now, a new survey shows that could soon change. Open enrollment begins this month for many companies across the nation, and that's when workers will find out if they can get some corporate help to shed pounds. GLP-1 drugs are used to treat diabetes, obesity, and other conditions. Employers typically cover the medications for diabetes, but not many cover them for weight loss because they can be pricey. A new KFF study shows more than 40 million people on their employer's insurance are considered eligible to use the drugs for weight loss based on their body mass index. And while the high prices of these medications could drive up insurance premiums, more than a quarter of employers who answered a national survey say they're considering adding coverage of GLP-1 drugs for weight loss in 2025 or 2026. KFF found about the same amount of employers say they're planning to add the coverage within the next 12 months. It's also likely that because of the cost, Employers will put certain requirements in place before they'll pick up the tab.
So if you're taking the shots, now some folks have told me that it's hard to get the shots. You have to be diabetic or pre-diabetic or something. Insurances are very stubborn to pay because they're pretty pricey. But much like anything else, the more it's out there, the prices probably would come down. But interesting. Well, another controversial thing for the Harris campaign, not only her polls dropping, majority of voters want to see the CBS transcript of the Harris interview because it's been proven that the interview was doctored.
An overwhelming 85% of Americans want CBS to release the full transcript of Vice President Kamala Harris's recent interview on 60 Minutes. And according to the new Harvard poll, more than half of Americans believe CBS edited the interview to present Harris in a more favorable light. The calls for transparency after the network aired two different answers from Harris to the same question are also overwhelmingly bipartisan. 87% of Democrats, 88% of Republicans, and 80% of independents want the interview verbatim. While it is common for broadcast networks to edit interviews for clarity and time purposes, it is also common for networks to release full transcripts of interviews. There's even precedent for CBS. A CBS interview of former President Trump in 2020 had its full transcript released. Same with CBS's 2019 interview of Attorney General William Barr on Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump. More recently, the network released the full transcript of their interview with Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell this year. Former CBS News reporter Catherine Herridge, who conducted the interview with Trump back in 2020, is among those calling on her former network to give Harris's 60 Minutes interview the same treatment and release the transcript. While the push for transparency has gained traction, CBS has not said whether or not they will release the 60 Minutes transcript.
Why the pause? CBS, if you have nothing to hide, release the transcript. But it's very obvious that you did cut and paste to try to make Harris look better, which then makes you biased and leaves suspect about the debate that you hosted, etc., etc. A lot of folks are now losing trust in CBS, and I think they're going to follow the path of CNN to dweller, bottom, news feeder, and nobody's going to want to be on your network. You're going to be hurting for people because people of any character are going to say, why would I want to be on a loser network? They're just going to cut and paste my statements and make me look bad. Well, another breaking story I thought you might like to hear.
The Republican National Committee has filed lawsuits in Michigan and North Carolina to stop what it calls illegal overseas voting. And Republican congressmen also filed suit in Pennsylvania this week, seeking tighter restrictions on U.S. voters who cast ballots overseas. According to the RNC, the North Carolina State Board of Elections and Michigan's Secretary of State are allowing overseas citizens who never lived in either state to illegally vote. State constitutions for North Carolina and Michigan require voters to be residents of their states in order to be eligible to cast a ballot. The lawsuits assert both states are extending eligibility to overseas voters who never resided in these states, indeed may never have resided anywhere in the United States. The Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act, which Congress passed in 1986, allows citizens who are members of the military, their families, and U.S. citizens residing outside of the U.S. to vote in federal elections. The RNC alleges North Carolina's Uniform Military and Overseas Act is extending voter rights to individuals not covered by the federal act. According to North Carolina law, a covered voter has many definitions, including a military uniform member serving overseas or an overseas voter who is a U.S. citizen and last resided in the state of North Carolina. A covered voter is also defined as a person born outside of the U.S. and does not satisfy the state residency requirement, but before leaving the U.S., had a parent or guardian eligible to vote in the state of North Carolina. The RNC asserts that as a result of this law, certain people who have never resided in North Carolina are registering to vote and voting in all its elections, including local, state, and federal. The RNC is also suing Michigan's Secretary of State because, according to Michigan's Election Officials Manual Chapter 7, a United States citizen who has never resided in the United States but who has a parent, legal guardian, or spouse who was last domiciled in Michigan is eligible to vote in Michigan, as long as the citizen has not registered or voted in another state. The RNC says this goes against Michigan's state constitution, which states no person may vote in Michigan unless they reside in Michigan.
So you've got this, and then listen, here's the one on Pennsylvania. This is the swing state everyone's watching.
And in Pennsylvania, 5 Republican lawmakers filed suit alleging the Commonwealth's local election officials are not required to verify the identity or eligibility of overseas voters, which they claim could result in those ballots being susceptible to fraud. They're asking the court to require officials to determine eligibility of the ballots before they're counted. Critics say Republicans are trying to undermine thousands of ballots in the event that Vice President Kamala Harris receives more votes than former President Trump in Pennsylvania.
We'll see. That's what everyone says. They say this stuff all the time. We're not sure, blah, blah, blah. But there seems to be tension growing in the Biden and the Harris camp. You may have heard this, but check this out.
There are tensions between the teams of Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden as the election approaches, according to an Axios report. According to the 10 sources who spoke with Axios anonymously, Biden's aides are struggling with their new supporting role after the president's withdrawal from the race, creating friction between the two teams, something the White House denies is happening. According to Axios sources, Harris's team has expressed concerns about inadequate coordination from the White House regarding Biden's messaging and schedule. They believe this lack of alignment undermines her campaign efforts. A notable incident occurred recently when President Biden held an impromptu press conference just as Harris was set to speak in Michigan.
This was good. I don't know if you knew that. Joe Biden never does impromptu press conferences. Think about this. And he decides to do one when Kamala, who rarely does any interviews, does an interview. This was definitely, I'm going to show you. Let's listen again.
Recently, when President Biden held an impromptu press conference just as Harris was set to speak in Michigan, potentially overshadowing her event. As Harris made an appearance on The View, Biden held another press event simultaneously. And when Harris criticized Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for not taking her call ahead of Hurricane Milton, which DeSantis denies there was ever a phone call made, it created public friction between Harris and DeSantis. Shortly after, Biden praised DeSantis and said he had been in touch with the Florida governor. Axios sources say Biden was not briefed on Harris's previous comments about DeSantis. Staffers say there has also been a public disconnect between the two camps over Biden-Harris administration policy and separating it from a Harris-Walz administration agenda. Staffers telling Axios Biden has been praising a working economy under his leadership, but the economy remains a concern for most voters. A Harris campaign staffer telling Axios the White House is lacking someone in the room thinking first and foremost about how things would affect the campaign. Before Biden dropped out of the race, his staff was skeptical of passing the torch to anyone, saying in June, at the end of the day, we'd switch to candidates who would, according to polls, be less likely to win than Joe Biden, the only person ever to defeat Donald Trump. The White House has dismissed the claims in Axios' report. President Biden endorsed Vice President Harris immediately after leaving the race, rejecting other approaches that would divide the party, and has attested to her leadership abilities and continually made clear his support for her. While ensuring that all critical White House functions are fully staffed, we have made significant changes to guarantee the vice president's team has all of the support and resources that they need. According to Axios, the mounting frustrations and tension lies between Harris and Biden's senior-level staffers, but say mid-level staff are working well together with the same goal of electing Harris in 3 weeks.
Well, I've been told that Harris said, well, you know, Biden was missing action for so long. So she evidently said, hey, this is my theme song, Joe. Hang on just a sec.
It's how I picture me with you. That's all you'd ever hear me say. But since you've been gone,
Since you've been gone, Joe.
I can't breathe for the first time. I'm so moving on.
She's so moving on, Joe.
Thanks to you, now I get what I want.
Thanks to you, she gets what she wants.
Since you've been gone,
Since you've been gone, Joe, you went missing in
how
action.
can I put it? You put me on. I even fell for that stupid love song. Yeah, yeah. Since you've been gone,
Yeah, Joe, you disappear. She takes
how
over.
come I never hear you say, I just wanna be with you? Guess you never felt that way.
You know, you think about it, it is like a silly song.
I can't breathe for the first time. I'm so moving on.
Moving on, Joe.
Thanks to you, now I get what I want. Since you've been gone.
So, thanks to you, Joe, she gets what she wants. You're out of there, buddy. But the staffs are all having problems. I'll see you tomorrow. This is Macil Duncan, the Patriot Pastor. God bless, Godspeed. Let's listen to some Ann Wilson as we go into the extra time. The MacilDuncanRadio.com.